The first thing Dean said about my retirement flag was that the frame made it look like somebody had died. He stood in the living room holding it against the wall while I watched from the kitchen doorway with a dish towel over my shoulder. The flag had been folded tight enough to hold its shape, blue field out, white stars lined like they were still answering to somebody. Beneath it, in the same walnut case, was a photograph of me in uniform and a brass plate with my name and 24 years reduced to 2 dates. "I'm not asking you to hang it over the fireplace," I said. "That's exactly where you asked me to hang it. I asked how it would look there. It would look like a military funeral home." His sister Tessa was opening a bottle of wine at the counter. Her partner, Nina, suddenly became very interested in the label. Dean lowered the frame and gave me the smile he used when he wanted everybody to understand that I was being difficult, but adorably so. "We can make you a little army corner downstairs," he said. "Put your medals down there, your pictures, all the hobby stuff." Nobody moved. I looked at him and said, "What did you call it?" That should have been his warning. We had been married 18 years. Dean knew the difference between my calm voice and my peaceful one. Instead, he shifted the frame to his other hand and said, "Come on, Mara. It was a job. Half the time it was practically a hobby you refused to outgrow." The timer on the oven went off. I remember that more clearly than I remember anyone's face. 4 bright beeps because the potatoes were done. Tessa set the corkscrew down. "Dean, what?" He looked around at all 3 of us. "We're not allowed to joke now?" Nina found the label fascinating again. I crossed the kitchen, silenced the timer, and pulled the roasting pan from the oven. The rosemary had burned at the edges. One potato had split open, its white center pushing through the skin. I turned each one with a wooden spoon while Dean carried my retirement frame toward the basement stairs. "Leave it," I said. He stopped. "Just set it by the wall." He leaned it carefully beside the record cabinet, almost tenderly, which somehow made it worse. Dinner was supposed to be a celebration. Tessa had brought wine that cost more than she usually spent, and Nina had arrived with a bakery box tied in green string. Dean had made short ribs because they were my favorite and because he liked recipes that required people to ask what smelled so good. The table was one he had built from black walnut during the first year of Vance Grain. I had paid for that lumber while sitting in Kuwait, where the wind blew grit through seams that looked sealed. Nobody mentioned that. Dean filled the silence by carving the meat even though short ribs did not need carving. "So," he said, "are we going to eat, or did I just braise a cow for emotional support?" Tessa gave him a look. Tessa's looks were impressive but rarely operational. She had been defending Dean since he was old enough to talk their mother out of grounding him. I took my seat. "We're going to eat." Nina passed me the potatoes. "They look great. One of them tried to escape." "That's the one I want." She smiled, and I nearly liked her too much for trying. Dean sat across from me and poured wine into my glass. "I didn't mean it the way you're taking it." "How am I taking it?" "I don't know. You're doing the face, 'I have one face.' You absolutely do not." Under other circumstances, that might have made me laugh. Dean could still make me laugh when I was furious, which had rescued our marriage more than once and probably harmed it almost as often. Tessa cleared her throat. "Mara, the ceremony was beautiful." "Thank you." Mom watched the video twice. Dean put down the bottle. "I said the ceremony was beautiful. You said the microphone squealed. It did squeal. That wasn't a review of Mara's service." There it was again. "Service," said as if it belonged in quotation marks. I cut into the meat. Dean's short ribs were excellent. That annoyed me too. Nina asked what I planned to do with my first free Monday. Before I could answer, Dean said, "Sleep until noon. I haven't slept until noon since 1998. Then it's overdue. I have an interview at 10. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "What interview?" "The housing nonprofit I told you about. They need an operations manager. You said they called. You didn't say you were interviewing. I said I had a meeting Monday. I thought it was one of those informational things. What does that mean? Coffee, networking, retired people, reconnaissance?" Tessa studied her plate. Nina drank some wine. Dean leaned back and gave a soft laugh, inviting me to recognize how silly the misunderstanding was. Mara, we already talked about this. You're coming into the studio. No, you talked about it. We both talked. You showed me paint samples for an office. And you picked the gray. You put 6 cards in my hand and asked which one looked least depressing. You picked Harbor Fog. I said they were all gray. Nina coughed into her napkin. Tessa kicked her under the table hard enough that the silverware jumped. Dean's mouth tightened. Can we not do this in front of company? Tessa isn't company. She has a key. I gave that back, Tessa said quickly. You copied it, Dean said, for emergencies. You came in once to borrow the blender. It was a smoothie emergency. That got a laugh from Nina, then me, then even Dean. For a few seconds, we were ourselves again, 4 adults around a good table, making fun of one another in ways that proved we knew each other. Dean reached across and touched 2 fingers to my wrist. Let's reset, he said. He was good at resets. Dean could make an apology feel unnecessary by offering warmth in its place. I had accepted that trade for years because warmth was pleasant and arguments were work. I looked at his fingers on my wrist. What do you think I'll do at the studio? I asked. His hand withdrew. We don't need to get into job descriptions over dinner. I'm curious. You'd handle the office side. Scheduling, vendor coordination, billing. Keep the trains running. I have been doing those things. Some of them. Without being paid. We're married, Mara. I didn't bill you for building the dining table. The studio billed a client $9,000 for its sister. Tessa stared at the table as though seeing it for the first time. Dean's cheeks reddened. What is this really about? I glanced toward the retirement frame leaning beside the cabinet. You tell me. He exhaled through his nose. Fine. You want me to say the army mattered? It mattered. It dictated where we lived. It canceled vacations. It called in the middle of the night, and you jumped. I spent years arranging my life around orders I didn't get a vote on. His voice was still controlled, but the humor had left it. This was no longer a joke he had phrased badly. This had weight behind it. I said, I know what you gave up. Do you? Yes. Because sometimes I'm not sure you do. Everybody thanked you. Everybody shook your hand. At that ceremony, people talked about your sacrifice for 2 hours. Nobody asked what it cost me. Tessa said his name again, quieter this time. No, it's okay, I said. Let him finish. Dean rubbed his thumb against the edge of his fork. He looked tired. For one dangerous second, I saw the man who had packed an entire apartment alone when my orders changed with 9 days' notice. The man who had mailed me coffee, clean socks, and a page torn from a home design magazine because I had once said I liked the windows. His resentment was not invented. That was what made what he did with it so cruel. I supported you, he said. I never stopped you. But we're done now. We finally get to build our real life. I looked around the cedar house we had lived in for 11 years. Our real life? You know what I mean. No, Dean, I don't. The studio. Us working together. No more deployments, no more changing plans because somebody above you snaps their fingers. You can put all that discipline into something that belongs to us. The army belonged to me. It rented you. The words landed between us. Nina closed her eyes briefly. Tessa whispered, Jesus. Dean heard himself too late. He reached for his wine, missed the stem, and caught it before it tipped. I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. Mara, he said, I'd like everyone to eat before it gets cold. No one wanted to, but they did. We discussed safe things. Tessa's kitchen renovation, Nina's new supervisor, the bakery that made the chocolate tart. Dean told a story about a client who had measured a doorway wrong and wanted physics to accept responsibility. I asked appropriate questions. I passed the salt. That was another thing the Army had taught me. A room did not get to fall apart just because I had. After dessert, Tessa cornered me in the kitchen while Dean walked Nina out to the car. He's an idiot, she said. I scraped chocolate from a plate into the trash. He's very intelligent. You know what I mean. I do. He's been weird about the retirement. I think he's scared. Of what? Change. You being home, the studio, everything. I turned on the faucet. That sounds difficult. Tessa touched my elbow. Don't do that. Wash dishes? The voice. What voice? The one that makes people feel like they've been dismissed from a meeting. I looked at her. She had Dean's gray eyes, but where his sharpened when he was cornered, hers went soft. Tessa loved him. She loved me too, though in an argument love tended to arrange itself by blood. He called 24 years of my life a hobby, I said. He was angry. So was I. I know. I'm not defending him. She was, but not because she agreed with him. She was trying to get everyone back to the version of the family that required the least from her. Dean returned while I was wrapping leftovers. He kissed Tessa's cheek and thanked Nina for the tart. At the door, Tessa hugged me longer than usual. When their car backed down the driveway, Dean locked the door and rested his forehead against it. That went well, he said. I carried the retirement frame upstairs. He followed me into the bedroom. Where are you going with that? I haven't decided. I'm sorry about the rented you thing. I set the frame against my dresser. And the hobby thing? I asked. Dean took off his watch and placed it in the wooden tray I had given him for our 15th anniversary. I'm sorry you heard it as disrespect. I waited. He began unbuttoning his shirt. That's not an apology, I said. I'm too tired to pass a language exam, so am I. I took a pillow from the bed. His hand stopped. Oh, come on, I'm sleeping in the spare room. Over one bad dinner? No, I just retired. I'd like to try sleeping alone without anyone telling me what I'm doing Monday. He stared at me, offended and uncertain, as though I had changed a rule without circulating the update. You're making this bigger than it is, he said. I tucked the pillow under my arm. Maybe. Or maybe you made it small because that was useful. I slept badly in the spare room. At 5:17, I gave up, dressed, and drove to Vance Grain. The studio sat in a converted brick warehouse near the river. Morning light came through the high windows and caught the sawdust in the air. My code still opened the side door. My handwriting was still on the delivery board. 3 invoices waited in the tray marked MARA because Dean had started leaving them there before I had agreed to anything. At 7:30, he came in carrying 2 coffees and wearing yesterday's irritation under a fresh shirt. I knew you'd be here, he said, handing me one. He set a yellow legal pad on the desk. The top page held a list in his handwriting. Confirm lumber delivery, move Holloway install, call accountant, fix payroll discrepancy. Dean tapped the list. Just until we get you settled, he said. I looked at the coffee, the invoices, and the neat column of tasks that had apparently become mine overnight. Then I opened the bottom desk drawer and began taking inventory. The bottom drawer contained 2 tape measures, a label maker, an emergency sewing kit, 4 protein bars old enough to vote, and the blue accordion folder where I kept information Dean believed lived naturally inside my head. He watched me set it on the desk. What are you looking for? An accurate picture. Of office supplies? Of what I've been doing here. He took the lid off his coffee. You've been helping. Yes, I've never denied that. I opened the folder. The front pocket held vendor contacts. Behind that were insurance renewal dates, account numbers, employee forms, equipment warranties, tax deadlines, and copies of every permit we had needed when the studio moved out of our garage. Dean could build a perfectly fitted walnut cabinet for a crooked alcove without writing down more than 3 measurements. Paperwork made him behave like he had been asked to donate bone marrow. I took a fresh legal pad from the drawer. Dean relaxed when he saw me pick up a pen. The Holloway install needs to move to Thursday. I left him a message Friday, but he hasn't called back. Why does it need to move? The finish on one of the nightstands clouded. What happened? Humidity, probably. It rained because you left it by the loading door. He frowned. It didn't get rained on. The moisture meter was on the finishing bench. Did you use it? It looked dry. Wood has been tricking men with eyesight for centuries. That almost got him. His mouth bent at one corner before he remembered we were fighting. "Thursday," he said. "He'll be fine." I wrote Holloway beside a blank line, then added, "Dean to confirm new delivery date." He leaned over my shoulder. "What is that?" "An accurate picture. Mara." I turned the page and began listing every recurring task I handled for Vance Grain. Payroll review, quarterly tax packet, insurance renewals, vendor negotiations, delivery scheduling, complaint responses, inventory counts. The annual equipment inspection Dean remembered only when the inspector called to say he was in the parking lot. Dean walked away, came back, and stood with both hands on his hips. "You have an interview in 2 hours, 93 minutes. So why are you auditing me?" "I'm auditing myself." "For what?" I looked up. "That's the part I'm trying to understand." His expression changed, not softened exactly, but opened. "Okay, then let's understand it together." He pulled over the rolling chair and sat across from me. In the washed-out morning light, he looked older than he had at dinner. There was gray in his beard he usually kept trimmed close enough to hide. A thin scratch crossed the back of his hand. He had always accumulated small injuries in the studio and acted surprised by each one. "Last night got ugly," he said. "It did. I'm not good with ceremonies. You cried at Tessa's wedding. I cried because the string quartet played God Only Knows. That was an ambush. You also cried when the Nationals won the World Series. America cried." I lowered my pen. He rubbed the scratch on his hand. "The retirement thing hit me harder than I expected. Everybody kept saying you were coming home, and I realized I don't know what that means. It means I no longer report to Fort Gregg Adams at 6 in the morning. You know what I'm saying? I do. I just don't know why the answer was to volunteer me for your office." "Our office? Your name is on the sign. Our name is on the sign. Your last name was already Vance when you married me." That quieted him. When Dean started the studio, we had laughed about it. Vance Grain sounded polished, and neither of us could think of a furniture pun that wasn't embarrassing. The joke disappeared as the business grew. Customers complimented the name. Magazine profiles called it personal. I became the wife in the background who happened, through a charming coincidence, to share the brand. Dean leaned forward. "Tell me what you want then." "I want to go to my interview." "Beyond that, I don't know yet. You always know. That doesn't mean I owe you an answer before I have one." The overhead lights came on with a metallic snap. Luis Ortega, Dean's lead builder, walked in from the shop wearing safety glasses on top of his head. "Morning," he called. Then he saw our faces. "Should I go back outside and try again?" Dean stood. "No. We're good. We're discussing workflow," I said. Luis nodded gravely. "Worse than fighting." He picked up the clipboard by the door. Luis had worked with Dean for 6 years and possessed the rare ability to tease him without starting a territorial dispute. He was also the reason several pieces had gone out on time when Dean got distracted by a new design. "The Holloway install moved to Thursday," Dean told him. Luis flipped a page. "I can't Thursday. Calder delivery. Calder is Friday." It was. Mara moved it because Mrs. Calder has surgery Friday. Dean looked at me. "She called last week," I said. "I didn't know that. It's in the calendar. You could move Calder back. Mrs. Calder is having surgery." "Right." He rubbed his forehead. "Fine. We'll figure it out." Luis looked between us. "Want me to call Holloway?" Dean said. "No." At the same time, I said, "Ask Dean." The corner of Luis's mouth twitched. He retreated into the shop. Dean lowered his voice. "This is exactly why I need you here." "No, this is exactly what I'm trying to show you. I'm not following. You didn't know where your own furniture was going, and somehow that became proof I should abandon an interview. I didn't ask you to abandon anything. You put a list on my desk." He picked up the yellow pad, folded it in half, and tossed it into the trash. "There. No list." The gesture was supposed to solve the problem. I watched the paper slowly unfold against a coffee cup and an empty package of sandpaper. "I have to go," I said. I put the accordion folder in the center of the desk. Dean stared at it as if I had left a live animal there. What am I supposed to do with that? Read it. The nonprofit operated out of a former pharmacy with cloudy front windows and a sign that said, "Rebuild Richmond" in cheerful blue letters. Someone had planted marigolds in 2 cracked concrete planters by the door. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and drywall dust. A woman with silver braids came out of the back carrying a cordless drill. "You're early," she said. 7 minutes. That's early here. She was Celia Brooks, the operations director. We had spoken twice by phone. I had pictured a tailored blazer and a clipboard. She wore canvas pants with paint on one knee and a t-shirt that said, "Measure twice, swear once." "Cabinet hinge," she said, lifting the drill. "It won. Philip's head. It's stripped, a rubber band between the bit and the screw." She studied me. "You interviewing for facilities, too?" "No, ma'am. Don't ma'am me. I'm trying to feel youthful and poorly supervised." She led me through a room crowded with folding tables, sample tiles, bottled water, and 3 people speaking into phones. On one wall, a map of the city was marked with colored pins. Blue meant assessments, yellow meant materials delivered, red meant crews assigned. Some pins had been moved so often they left little clusters of holes. Celia handed me a paper cup of coffee and sat opposite me at a scarred conference table. "Your resume is terrifying," she said. "That's not usually the goal. 24 years of logistics and maintenance operations, 600 people on your last assignment, 612 at full staffing. We have 38 employees, 90 regular volunteers, and 1 printer that detects fear. I've worked with older equipment." She smiled, then read the first page again. "You could make more money somewhere else." "Yes." "You could have a nicer office." "Yes." "You could probably work for a company that does retreats in places with hammocks." "I don't trust scheduled relaxation." "Good answer." "Why us?" I had prepared one. I had practiced it in the car. Mission alignment, transferable skills, community impact. The words stood in formation and waited. Instead, I looked at the map. "Because when a storm takes somebody's roof, everyone becomes urgent at once," I said. "Donors, contractors, volunteers, the people living under the tarp. If nobody controls the sequence, urgency turns into waste, and waste turns into promises people can't keep." Celia watched me over the rim of her cup. "I'm good at sequence," I said. "That sounds useful. It doesn't tell me why you want to be here. I retired Friday. I know. Yesterday, my husband planned my next career for me. Did he pick this one? No. Then it has that going for it." I laughed before I could stop myself. The interview lasted an hour and 20 minutes. Celia asked what I did with unreliable people, how I handled volunteers who wanted gratitude more than assignments, and whether I could work for a woman who changed her mind when new facts appeared. "If the facts are new," I said, "and if they're not, I'll bring you the old facts in a more irritating font." She wrote something down. "You and I may get along." When I left, there was a message from Dean. "Call me." Holloway furious. A second message arrived while I was reading it. "Please don't make a point with clients." I called him from the parking lot. "I didn't speak to Mr. Holloway," I said. "You usually call him before an install change. I usually handle the install schedule. And today you decided not to? Today you told Luis you would figure it out. I thought you'd at least give me a heads up." "I did. At the desk. You threw it away." He went silent. In the background, a sander started and stopped. "This isn't like you," he said. "What isn't? Letting something fail when you could prevent it." I looked through the nonprofit's front window. Celia was kneeling beside the broken cabinet with the drill between her teeth. One of the employees handed her a rubber band. "I didn't let anything fail," I said. "I let you handle it. That's a distinction without a difference. It feels different from here." He breathed into the phone. "Are you coming back?" "No." "Mara, we need to talk about this." "We do. Tonight." "Can you at least call Holloway? He likes you. That's why you should apologize to him yourself." I ended the call before he could turn the request into an obligation. On the drive home, I stopped at a stationery store and bought a pack of red folders. Dean had always ignored red folders because he said they felt accusatory. That was fine. I had spent years making necessary things pleasant enough for him to accept. I no longer had the energy for color psychology. Dean saw the red folders on the kitchen island and said, "Should I have an attorney present? You should have a pen. That bad? That organized." He had changed into an old Vance Grain t-shirt and started a pot of water for pasta. A grocery store bouquet sat in the middle of the island, still wrapped in plastic with the price sticker peeled off badly enough to leave a white scar. I set my purse on a stool. Are those apology flowers? They're discussion flowers, different species, hardier. I touched one of the yellow petals. They're nice. I also bought garlic bread, but I don't want to influence the negotiations. He was trying. I knew what it looked like when Dean wasn't trying. It involved long showers and aggressive cabinet closing. "How did it go with Holloway?" I asked. I apologized. "Thursday didn't work, so Luis and I are delivering tomorrow night. The finish won't be ready. It will. If you rush the last coat," he held up a wooden spoon. "You told me to handle it." I closed my mouth. "There," he said. "We're both learning." The pasta water boiled over while he was smiling at his own joke. He swore, moved the pot, and wiped the stove with the dish towel I had left folded by the sink. His movements were quick and irritated, but not incompetent. That distinction mattered. Dean had spent years behaving as if he couldn't perform certain domestic tasks because I performed them faster. The truth was that he could do most things. He simply disliked the stage where nobody applauded. I took the folders to the dining table. There were 5: clients, vendors, payroll, compliance, and scheduling. I had filled them at the spare room desk after the interview, using copies from our home files and notes I could make without returning to the studio. Dean brought 2 bowls to the table and looked at the labels. Compliance sounds ominous. It's fire inspection, workplace insurance, equipment certification, and the city permit renewal. When is that? Which one? The city thing. 3 weeks. He sat slowly. You usually tell me a week before. I usually tell you 6 weeks before. You notice a week before. He pushed grated Parmesan toward me. Is this punishment? No, it feels punitive. It's red card stock. You know what I mean. I did. He was not really asking about folders. He was asking whether I had decided to make his life harder because he had hurt me. I'm giving you everything I have, I said. You were already doing that. The sentence left his mouth without permission. I saw him hear it. Dean looked down and wound spaghetti around his fork. That came out wrong. It came out interesting. He set the fork down. I mean, you were already handling this. Why do we need a formal transfer between 2 people who live in the same house? Because I'm not going to run the studio. His gaze went to the flowers, then back to me. You had 1 interview. Yes. How did it go? Well, that's good. He said it correctly. His face did not. They'll let me know this week, I said. What are they paying? I told him. Dean laughed once, expecting me to join him. Mara, that's 30% below what you could make in private logistics. I know. And you'd rather take that than build equity in our own company? Your company. We have been married 18 years. Legally, this distinction you keep making may not even exist. I'm not talking legally. Then what are you talking about? The part where you decided my time became available the moment the Army stopped using it. He leaned back. That isn't fair. Did you ask me? I assumed my wife would want to help me. I have helped you, so now that you're retired, helping stops. The pasta sat between us, steaming less with every sentence. I said, if I don't take the nonprofit job, I still won't work at Vance Grain. That sounds like punishment. It's information. You always do that. Do what? Turn a feeling into a briefing. I almost answered quickly. Training had given me whole shelves of language for avoiding the messy center of a conversation. Clarify, assess, execute. Information was clean, feelings arrived without labels and leaked through containers. I put down my fork. Fine, I don't want to work for you. His jaw tightened. I love the studio, I said. I'm proud of what we helped build, but I don't want to spend my retirement making your work possible from a desk nobody sees. People see you. They see your wife. You are my wife. I'm also the person who knows when your insurance renews. That doesn't make you invisible. Can you name the month?" He looked toward the red folder. "That's not the point," he said. "It's May. I would have checked. The renewal email goes to me. Because you set it up that way. Because you asked me to." He stood, carried his bowl to the kitchen, then returned without it. "You want credit? Is that what this is?" The word made me feel cheap. Credit sounded like a plaque, a bouquet, somebody clapping long enough to be noticed. I wanted you not to call it a hobby. I apologized. You apologized for how I heard it. Jesus, Mara, I used the wrong sentence. You've never said the wrong thing after a bad day. You repeated it. I felt cornered. By what? He dragged a hand through his hair. By everybody acting like your life is beginning now. I waited. He paced once to the record cabinet and back. My retirement frame was no longer leaning there. I had carried it upstairs, but my eyes still went to the empty spot. When you got orders for Georgia, I had the apprenticeship in Portland, he said. Remember? Yes. I didn't go. We discussed it. You said we could try long distance, and we both knew that meant it was over. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. We'd been married 14 months. You were leaving for a year, maybe 3, so I went with you. I worked in a cabinet shop where the owner called MDF Wood and paid me $11 an hour. I remember. Then Kentucky. Then Virginia. Every time I got traction, we moved. The studio is the first thing I built that nobody could order me to leave. The anger in his voice was old enough to have settled into the walls. You told me you wanted to come, I said. I did want to come. Both things can be true. I know that. Do you? He turned away. I could have defended the moves. I could have listed the times I offered to leave the army, the nights Dean told me not to throw away my career because he was frustrated, the decisions we had made together at kitchen tables in 5 different houses. None of that would change the fact that he had lost something real. I'm sorry about Portland, I said. I've been sorry for years. I don't think I ever said it plainly. His shoulders lowered. I should have asked more questions, I continued. Sometimes I heard, I'll go with you, and treated it like the end of the conversation. He turned back. Thank you. But I don't owe you the rest of my working life because you didn't take that apprenticeship. His face closed again. You can't just let a moment be a moment. I did that for 18 years. He went upstairs before I finished eating. When I entered the spare room, I found a glass of water on the nightstand and the heavier quilt folded across the foot of the bed. Dean knew I got cold when I was upset. He had also turned off the ceiling fan, which rattled on low. I sat on the edge of the mattress with one hand on the quilt. That was the problem with reducing someone to a villain. Dean kept refusing to stay reduced. The next morning, the flowers had begun to open. So had the red folders. Clients lay beside Dean's coffee mug, and scheduling was propped against the fruit bowl. He was reading my notes when I came in. You made a flow chart, he said. You hate flow charts. I hate ugly flow charts. This one has arrows. Most of them do. He pointed at the bottom. What does owner decision mean? It means the issue requires you. You could make those decisions. I did when you were unavailable. Was I unavailable a lot? I opened the refrigerator. Mara. You were busy building furniture. That sounded sarcastic. It wasn't. He closed the folder. I can hire someone. Yes. Then why does this feel like you think the studio is about to collapse? I don't. You labeled a tab critical dates. Dates remain critical even when businesses are healthy. He stared at me, trying to determine whether I was insulting him in a language he could not prove. The house phone rang, an antique event usually caused by Tessa or a medical office. Dean answered. Hey, yeah, she's here. He held the phone toward me. Your sister-in-law. My condolences, Tessa said when I picked up. What happened? I agreed to talk to both of you. I didn't ask you to. Exactly. Dean called first. Across the kitchen, he developed a powerful interest in coffee grounds. Tessa lowered her voice. He thinks you're leaving him. I'm going to a dentist appointment at 11. Mara, no one has asked me if I'm leaving. Would you answer? I looked at Dean. He was watching now. I don't know, I said. The words surprised all three of us. Tessa went quiet. Dean stopped moving entirely. I have to go, I said. I handed him the phone and walked upstairs before either of them could turn my uncertainty into something I had to defend. At 10:15, my cell rang. I expected Tessa. It was Celia. I spoke to your references, she said. One of them used the phrase weaponized preparedness. That could be complimentary. She meant it lovingly. We'd like to offer you the position. I sat on the spare bed. Through the open door, I could see the corner of my retirement frame beside the dresser in the main bedroom. When do you need an answer? I asked. People say that when they're about to negotiate. I'm not negotiating. Then what are you doing? I listened to Dean moving around downstairs, opening and closing the red folders. Making sure I'm choosing something, I said, and not just refusing something else. Celia was quiet for a beat. Fair, she said, take until Friday. After the call, I opened my email. At the top of my inbox was a message Dean had sent to 6 clients the previous afternoon. The subject line read, "Exciting news at Vance Grain." I opened it. The last paragraph welcomed me, recently retired after a distinguished military career as the studio's new full-time director of operations. Dean had finally honored my service. He had used it to announce a job I had already refused. I carried the phone downstairs and placed it beside Dean's coffee. Read that. He glanced at the screen. His face changed too quickly for innocence. You saw the email. I'm in the email. I was going to talk to you about it. You sent it before talking to me. I sent it before dinner. You sent it after I told you I wouldn't work there. You hadn't said that yet. I said it at the studio. You said you were auditing yourself. You said you didn't know what you wanted. I said I was going to an interview. That doesn't mean you were taking the job. It means you don't announce me as your full-time employee. Dean pinched the bridge of his nose. The red folders lay open around him, giving the breakfast table the appearance of a very organized crime scene. It went to 6 clients, he said. People we know. It wasn't a press release. You used the phrase, distinguished military career. I thought you'd appreciate that. You called it a hobby at dinner and turned it into marketing copy on Monday. His hand dropped. That's unfair. It's literally what happened. I was proud of you. You were reassuring clients. Both can be true. You're the one who keeps saying that. I looked at him until he shifted in his chair. He picked up the phone and reread the message as though there might be a kinder email underneath it. I'm trying to grow the business. Clients have been asking what you're doing next, and I thought this would be good. They trust you. You're good with them. I know. And Director of Operations is a real title. You said nobody sees what you do. I gave it a name. You gave it a name after you gave it to me. His voice sharpened. What do you want me to do, Mara? Send another email saying my wife has rejected the family business because I made a stupid comment about a flag? I want you to correct it. That makes us look unstable. We are unstable. We had a fight. We're sleeping in different rooms. For 2 nights. Do you think the number is the problem? He pushed away from the table and went to the sink. The faucet ran too hard, splashing the counter. Fine, he said. I'll tell them the timing is still being worked out. No, tell them I won't be joining. You haven't accepted the other job. That isn't relevant. It is if this is just you making a point. The words had barely cleared his mouth when he winced. I said, You have until noon to correct the email. If you don't, I will. He turned off the water. Is that a threat? It's a deadline. Same voice. Different folder. I took the phone and went upstairs. The retirement frame was leaning beside the dresser, where the morning sun hit the glass and cut my face in half. In the photograph, I was standing so straight my back hurt just looking at it. Dean had taken that picture after the ceremony. He had told me to quit squinting, made some comment about my Army-issued smile, and then caught me laughing. It was the best photograph anyone had taken of me in uniform. He had been proud that day. I knew he had. That was what kept catching me. Cruelty would have been easier if it arrived pure. Dean loved me. He also wanted my love to take a shape that served him. I dressed for the dentist and came downstairs at 10:40. Dean had moved the red folders into a neat stack. His laptop was open. "Done," he said. I checked my email. His correction was brief. Mara's transition into Vance Grain will not be proceeding as originally announced. She is considering several opportunities as she begins her well-earned retirement. Please join me in wishing her the best in this next chapter. He had included me and the 6 clients. 2 replied within minutes with congratulations. 1 used 3 flag emojis. "You made it sound like we issued competing statements after a corporate merger," I said. "You wanted it corrected." "I did, so it's corrected." I closed my purse. "Thank you." He nodded without looking at me. At the dentist, the hygienist asked what I planned to do now that I was retired while her hands were in my mouth. I made a sound that could have meant nonprofit operations or "please stop stabbing my gums." She chose the first interpretation and told me her cousin had retired from the Navy, bought a fishing boat, and gotten divorced within a year. Not because of the boat, she said. Probably. The dentist found an old filling that needed replacement. He gave me enough anesthetic to numb my left nostril and told me not to chew until late afternoon. When I stepped outside, Tessa was sitting on the hood of her car with 2 coffees. "You look crooked," she said. "I'm having a stroke. Can you lift both arms?" I did. "Then it's probably your personality." She handed me a cup and I attempted a sip. Coffee escaped the numb side of my mouth and ran down my chin. Tessa gave me a napkin. "This is the most vulnerable I've ever seen you. I hate you." "Good. You can still form words." We sat in her car because the wind had picked up. Tessa turned the engine on for heat but did not pull away. "I'm sorry I ambushed you on the house phone," she said. "You ambushed both of us. He called me at 6:30. You answered? I thought somebody was dead." "Just the marriage." "Mara." I pressed the napkin to my lip. "That was a joke." "Mostly." She stared through the windshield at a man trying to fit a large cardboard box into a small sedan. He turned it 3 different ways without improving the situation. "Dean told me about the email," she said. "His version or the sent version?" I saw the sent version. Nina said I wasn't allowed to form an opinion without reading the primary source. I like Nina. So do I. It's becoming inconvenient. The man abandoned the trunk and opened his back door. Tessa rubbed her hands around the coffee cup. The email was bad. "Yes." "He says he corrected it." "He did. Did he tell you he lost a big proposal last month?" I turned toward her. "No. He bid on some conference room project for an architecture firm. They went with a shop in North Carolina. Losing bids is part of the business. This one bothered him. He'd already priced new equipment. Of course he had. Dean's confidence was generally charming until it encountered arithmetic. "What does that have to do with me?" I asked. "He thinks having you at the studio would make it look more established, like it's growing. He wants me as a credibility accessory. I don't think he'd use those words. He used distinguished military career." Tessa sighed. "I'm not saying it's okay. I'm trying to tell you he's panicking. Then he should say he's panicking. He doesn't know how. He built a business from nothing. He can learn a sentence. You make everything sound simple." "No, I make things sound possible." "That's worse sometimes." The man with the box finally got it into the back seat. Half of it remained outside the car, but he shut the door against it and stood there looking victorious. Tessa said, "Did you mean it?" "What?" "When you said you didn't know if you were leaving." The numbness was starting to fade into a prickling ache. I could feel my pulse in the side of my mouth. I meant, "I don't know," I said. "He loves you?" "I know." "You love him." "I know that too." She looked relieved, which irritated me. "Those aren't answers," I said. "They're not nothing." "No, they're the reason this is hard." Tessa picked at the cardboard sleeve on her cup. Mom says marriage has seasons. Your mother also stayed married to a man who kept a second refrigerator exclusively for beer. She said that was how they got through summer. I laughed and immediately bit the inside of my numb cheek. Tessa reached for my arm. Are you okay? No, and now it's your fault. She smiled, but it faded quickly. I don't want to take sides. You already have one. That's not fair. You're his sister. I'm not angry about it. Just don't call it neutral. She looked down at her coffee. For a moment, I thought I had pushed too hard. Then she said, "He's wrong about the hobby." It was the first time she had said it without cushioning the sentence. "He knows what your service cost," she continued. "Maybe not all of it, because I don't think you told anybody all of it. But he knows. I think that's why he had to make it smaller." I watched the man with the box drive away, one rear door held shut with his arm through the open window. Why? Because if it was big, then what he's asking from you now is big too. My cell rang before I could answer. Celia's name appeared on the screen. "I'll give you privacy," Tessa said, reaching for the door handle. "Stay," I answered. "I have a revised offer," Celia said. "Same money, worse parking. That's compelling. One of our site coordinators walked out this morning, not dramatically. She got an offer from the county and brought donuts to soften the blow. I respect it, but resent the donuts. I'm sorry. Come see the operation before you decide. Not the office, actual work. We're assessing 4 houses tomorrow, and the forecast says rain because weather enjoys irony. I can come. Wear boots you don't love." After we hung up, Tessa studied me. "You sound different with her." "How?" "Lighter. I've spoken to her 3 times. Exactly." I looked down at the red coffee mark on my coat. "I'm going out with their field team tomorrow. Does Dean know?" "Not yet." "Do you want advice?" "No." "Good, because Nina says my advice is usually fear-wearing lipstick." I looked at her. "That's annoyingly good. She's considering needlepointing it on a pillow." Tessa dropped me at home because the dentist had warned me not to drive until the numbness fully wore off. Dean's truck was gone. Inside, the dining table had been cleared. The red folders were no longer stacked in the kitchen. I found them on the desk in the spare room. On top was a handwritten note. "I'll hire someone. You don't have to prove anything." For several seconds, I stood there with my coat still on. It was concession and accusation in the same sentence. Very efficient. I carried the folders back downstairs, put them in a cardboard file box, and added a printed list of the accounts still connected to my personal email. Then I logged into the scheduling system and changed my status from administrator to read-only. A warning appeared. "Are you sure you want to remove administrative access? This action must be reversed by another administrator." I clicked yes. Dean came home while I was making soup. Rain had started tapping against the windows, and he brought the smell of wet pavement in with him. He saw the file box by the door. "What's that?" "The studio information." I said I'd hire someone, I know. "So why does it look like you're moving out?" "It's one box. You've been sleeping upstairs with your clothes. I've always kept clothes upstairs. You know what I mean." I turned down the burner. "I'm going with the non-profit field team tomorrow." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course you are. What does that mean?" "It means you've found another unit to save." "I'm looking at a job. You never just look. You commit. You organize. You make yourself indispensable, then act surprised when people depend on you." The accuracy of it struck hard enough that I didn't answer. Dean stepped closer to the box and lifted the lid. "You removed yourself from the calendar. I made you the administrator. You didn't ask. It's your company. It was ours yesterday." "No. Yesterday you announced it was ours." He replaced the lid. "Are you leaving me?" he asked. This time there was no Tessa on the phone, no client waiting, no joke available to soften the room. I looked at the man I had loved in 6 homes, 3 states, and every version of myself since I was 28. "I don't know," I said. Dean nodded once. Then he picked up the file box and carried it out to his truck. His taillights disappeared through the rain. I stood by the window with the soup simmering behind me and waited for the emotion that was supposed to follow. Relief, maybe. Fear. The clean snap of a decision. What I felt was annoyed that he had taken the only file box with handles. Dean returned 40 minutes later without it. Water darkened the shoulders of his jacket. He stepped out of his shoes by the door, lined them neatly on the mat, and went upstairs. "Soup's ready," I called. "I'm not hungry. You need to eat." The silence that followed was so familiar it embarrassed me. Even after telling him I might leave, I was still tracking whether he had consumed enough calories. I poured the soup into 2 containers and put them in the refrigerator. Then I washed the pot, wiped the counters, checked the back door, and paused with my hand on the thermostat. Dean liked the house 2 degrees warmer than I did. I set it to his temperature. That night, rain hammered the roof hard enough to wake me twice. The second time, I heard Dean walking down the hall. His steps stopped outside the spare room, but he did not knock. In the morning, his truck was gone. A note beside the coffee maker said, "Holloway Delivery." The word "sorry" had been written underneath and crossed out so heavily that the pen tore the paper. I put on canvas pants, a thermal shirt, and the old brown boots I had worn while clearing storm debris years earlier. They were already ugly enough to meet Celia's standard. At the last second, I added 2 pairs of work gloves and a roll of contractor bags to my backpack. Rebuild Richmond's white cargo van waited outside the office with its hazard lights blinking. Celia stood at the rear doors, arguing with a blue tarp. "You brought your own gloves," she said. "Yes. Show off." The tarp slid loose and dumped a pocket of rainwater down the front of her jacket. She closed her eyes. "You saw nothing. I can forget on a need-to-know basis." A man in a green rain shell leaned out from the driver's seat. "If you 2 are finished establishing dominance, some of us would like to leave before the next storm." Celia introduced him as Malcolm Reed, a site coordinator who had spent 30 years inspecting commercial buildings and now distrusted any structure built after 1985. They took pride out of lumber in '86, he told me. It was a difficult year. He pointed at me. "She can stay." Our first stop was a narrow brick house with water stains spreading across the front bedroom ceiling. Loretta Bell, the owner, met us in pink rubber boots and a robe printed with peacocks. She was 73, sharp-eyed, and offended by the concept of evacuation. "I've lived here since Nixon resigned," she said. "The roof knows better than to fall on me." "The roof doesn't follow the news," Malcolm said. Loretta looked him over. "You always this cheerful?" "Only around structural failure." While Malcolm climbed into the attic, Celia walked the exterior, and I photographed the interior damage. A plastic storage tub sat under the worst leak. It was half full. Every few seconds, a drop struck the water with a small, patient sound. Loretta watched me write measurements. "You military?" she asked. "Retired Army. I can tell." "Hair? Boots?" Military women always buy boots like they plan to survive their own funeral. I looked down at the worn leather. These were on sale. "Army teach you to lie like that?" "No, ma'am." "Marriage." She laughed and offered me coffee. The ceiling had not begun to sag, but the insulation was saturated. Malcolm wanted the room cleared before more rain arrived. Loretta objected to moving a heavy mahogany dresser that had belonged to her mother. The drawers were full, the hallway was narrow, and every available volunteer was already assigned elsewhere. "I can help you empty it," I said. "Nobody touches the top drawer. Then you empty the top drawer." She narrowed her eyes. "You bossy?" "Efficient. Same hat, different coat." We moved the dresser 1 drawer at a time. The top drawer went into the hall under a towel without being opened. Celia said nothing, but I caught her watching how I gave Loretta choices about everything except standing beneath wet plaster. By the time we secured plastic sheeting inside the room, Loretta had decided Malcolm needed feeding and Celia needed a better raincoat. She pressed a foil-wrapped piece of pound cake into my hand as we left. "Come back when you have time to sit," she said. "We're going to fix your roof, not move in." I wasn't inviting the gloomy one. Malcolm drove us to the next assessment while eating pound cake over the steering wheel. You didn't share, Celia said. She didn't give you any. She gave Mara enough for a crew. Mara outranks us. I'm retired, I said. Malcolm brushed crumbs from his rain shell. Rank is like glitter. Never really comes off. The second house needed less work than the owner had feared. The third needed more than we could provide. A section of foundation had shifted, turning a long crack in the basement wall into an open seam. The homeowner, a quiet accountant named Anthony Pike, kept asking how much caulk he should buy. No caulk, Malcolm said. Concrete patch? No. Expanding foam? Malcolm looked physically wounded. Anthony folded his arms. I have to do something. Celia explained the engineering assessment, the assistance application, and the weight involved. Anthony listened until he heard the word wait, then began proposing hardware store solutions again. I recognized the tone. It was the voice people used when action felt safer than uncertainty, even if the action was wrong. Show me where you sleep, I said. He blinked. Why? So we can decide what is safe tonight. The wall is not getting fixed today. You are still getting through today. His shoulders loosened by half an inch. We made a short list. Move his work desk upstairs, keep the basement door shut, relocate the dehumidifier without approaching the damaged wall, call his sister about staying with her if the rain worsened. Celia handled the application while I wrote the list on the back of a Rebuild Richmond flyer. Outside, she waited until Anthony closed the door. You gave him an assignment. He needed one. Useful or decorative? Both. She nodded. Good. We ate lunch in the van behind a hardware store. Celia had brought hummus, Malcolm had a sandwich wrapped in wax paper, and I had forgotten food entirely. I divided Loretta's pound cake into 3 pieces. You carry 2 pairs of gloves and no lunch, Celia said. Planning is situational. Your blood sugar isn't. I had coffee. That's a beverage and a cry for help. Malcolm accepted his piece of cake. She'll learn. Celia rested her container on the dashboard. No, she won't. People like her make sure everyone else gets lunch and then act puzzled when they're mean at 3. I'm not mean at 3. What time are you mean? Depends on staffing. Malcolm laughed with his mouth full. At the 4th house, a volunteer crew had already begun removing damaged drywall before anyone shut off power to the affected room. I stopped them at the doorway. A broad man in a Rebuild Richmond rain poncho told me the breaker was probably fine. Probably is not a setting, I said. He stared at me. Who are you? Today? The person asking you to put down the reciprocating saw. He looked toward Celia. Celia smiled pleasantly. I'd listened to her. We shut off the circuit, tested the outlets, and discovered moisture behind one of the receptacles. The broad man avoided me for 20 minutes, then asked where he should stack debris. By the end of the assessment, he was carrying contractor bags from my backpack and calling me sergeant. I corrected him twice, then let it go. Some habits belong to other people. Back at the office, Celia handed me a towel and pointed toward a folding chair. Well, she asked. Rainwater had soaked through one boot at the ankle. My shoulders hurt. I had drywall dust on my sleeve and Loretta's phone number in my pocket because she did not trust the main office people to remember her top drawer. I want the job, I said. Celia did not smile immediately. Why? Because the work has an edge. If the sequence is wrong, somebody gets hurt or money gets wasted. If it's right, most people never notice. That sounds familiar to you. It does. And you're not choosing us just because your husband chose something else? I peeled a loose thread from the towel. I can't promise none of this is reaction. Good. People who promise pure motives are selling vitamins. I can promise I'd still want the work if Dean apologized tonight. Better. She held out her hand. Start in 2 weeks? I shook it. Yes, excellent. First lesson, bring lunch. When I arrived home, my retirement frame was hanging over the fireplace. Dean stood on the couch, holding a level against the top edge. The folded flag sat above my photograph, centered in the walnut case. He had moved the abstract painting that usually hung there and leaned it against the record cabinet. He glanced at my muddy clothes. You look like you lost a fight with a basement. The basement had help. He stepped down from the couch. It's level. I can see that. I used anchors. I trust your relationship with walls. He waited for more. The frame looked good there. I hated that it looked good. Thank you, I said. Dean studied my face. I shouldn't have called it a hobby. No, it wasn't one. I knew that when I said it. I set my wet backpack by the door. He continued. I wanted to hurt you because I felt like nobody saw what I had given up. That doesn't make it okay. No, I'm sorry. The apology landed without qualifiers. It was what I had asked for, and it did not repair as much as either of us wanted. I accepted the job, I said. His eyes moved past me toward the rain-streaked windows. Of course you did. I start in 2 weeks. Congratulations. He said that correctly, too. I took off my boots. How was the delivery? Holloway found a flaw in the finish. There was a flaw in the finish. He accepted a discount. I nodded. I posted an office job, Dean said. Part-time to start. I talked to the accountant about what we can afford. That's good. I'll have to wait on the new planer. I'm sorry. No, you're not. I'm sorry you can't buy it. I'm not sorry you're hiring someone. He looked toward the file box, no longer in the house. $24 an hour. For which tasks? All the things in the folders. That should be full-time. I can't afford full-time. Then the task list has to shrink. His mouth tightened, but he nodded. $24 an hour. I multiplied it without meaning to. 20 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, all the years I had filled gaps after work, before formations, across time zones. Dean had finally put a value on the labor he called helping. It was more than flowers. It was also nowhere close. Dean mistook my silence for disagreement. I know it isn't what your time is worth, he said. It's what the business can pay. I'm not asking you to pay me. Then why are you doing math at me? I'm doing math near you. There's a difference. Yes, near you is quieter. He sat on the arm of the couch. My framed photograph looked over his shoulder, bright and official above the fireplace. The placement made the room feel altered, as if someone with authority had begun supervising our furniture. I'll make it full-time when we can afford it, he said. Don't promise a job to somebody who doesn't exist yet. I'm trying to tell you I understand. Then hire for the work, not for the person you wish I had agreed to be. He looked at the frame, then at me. You could help me write the posting. No. A small laugh escaped him. I walked into that. Yes. Can you at least tell me if it's terrible? No, you don't even know what it says. That's why it's such a confident answer. I picked up my wet boots and carried them to the laundry room. Dean followed me as far as the kitchen. Are we going to keep living like this? He asked. I set the boots on newspaper. Like what? You in the spare room. Every conversation turning into a deposition. Me needing clearance before I ask whether you want dinner. You don't need clearance. Do you want dinner? Yes. See? Terrifying. He ordered Thai food. When it arrived, he put my preferred curry on the left side of the table and remembered to ask for extra rice. We ate under my retirement flag and talked about nothing dangerous. A customer had requested a 12-foot dining table for a room 11 feet wide. Celia had sent me 6 onboarding forms and a message saying only 3 were real. The others had survived from a previous director who liked paper. Dean laughed at that. You're going to reorganize the whole place in a month. I'm going to observe for a month. You don't observe. You identify weaknesses from across the parking lot. I can change. Can you? He said it lightly, but the question stayed after the food was gone. That night, I took more clothes into the spare room. Not a suitcase. A stack of sweaters, 2 pairs of jeans, underwear carried in the small laundry basket. Dean stood in the bedroom doorway while I emptied 1 dresser drawer. You know there are hangers in there, he said. I know. You're folding blouses out of spite? I'm not moving the blouses. Good. That feels hopeful. I wanted to tell him not to measure hope by closet space. Instead, I carried the basket down the hall. He had replaced the rattling ceiling fan with the quiet one from his studio office. I noticed because the room no longer clicked every 3rd rotation. Thank you, I said. Dean shrugged. It was driving me crazy. You don't sleep in here. I could hear it from the hall. Neither of us challenged the lie. The job posting appeared online the next afternoon. I knew because Tessa sent me a screenshot with the message, "Am I allowed to apply, or is that taking sides?" The description included scheduling, billing, vendor coordination, client communication, payroll preparation, inventory tracking, compliance records, and other duties in support of the owner. I typed, "Tell him to remove the last line." Then I deleted it and sent, "Only if you want 20 hours of work in every 20-hour week." She replied with a skull. Dean received 83 applications. He told me this at dinner with the stunned expression of a man who had left a sandwich unattended near pigeons. Half of them didn't read the description, he said. One guy's entire work history is dog grooming. Dogs require scheduling. He listed vibes under special skills. Were they good? He didn't specify. Dean narrowed the applications to 9 and interviewed 4. He did not ask me to join him, and I did not volunteer. That boundary felt so successful, I distrusted it. On Friday, he hired Janelle Price, a former office manager for an orthopedic practice who had left after the doctors sold it to a regional chain. She was 51, wore red-framed glasses, and had negotiated the position to 28 hours a week before accepting. She said the job couldn't be done in 20, Dean told me. Smart woman. She also wants Wednesdays remote, reasonable, and 27 an hour. Still reasonable. He pointed his fork at me. You're enjoying this? A little. She starts Monday. I told her you go over the files with her. The enjoyment ended. No. His fork lowered. You created the files. You have them. She'll have questions. You can answer them. I don't know why some things are done the way they are. Then she can improve them. Mara, 1 hour. No. He pushed his plate away. This is getting ridiculous. I handed over complete records. I labeled them. I gave you a task list, dates, contacts, and passwords. You changed your access before I could check anything. I made you the administrator, and now you're refusing to speak to the person taking over your work. I'm speaking to you. You know what I mean. I did, and I also knew how easy it would be to go in for 1 hour. I would answer Janelle's questions, notice 3 inconsistencies, correct 2 old vendor records, and show her a shortcut in the invoicing system. 1 hour would become lunch. By evening, Dean would say the transition had gone smoothly. My work would disappear into the smoothness. I can meet her for coffee, I said. Away from the studio. She can ask me specific questions after she's reviewed the files. 1 hour. Dean's shoulders relaxed. Thank you. I'm not training her. No. Coffee. And you're paying her for the hour. He looked offended. Obviously. It had not been obvious. Janelle arrived at the coffee shop Monday carrying the compliance folder and a notebook with small, exact handwriting. She ordered tea, sat down, and said, "Your husband thinks this job is data entry. He's wrong." I know. I liked her immediately. She opened the folder to a page marked Annual Dust Collection Inspection. Why does the reminder go to your personal email? Because the inspector used to call Dean, and Dean used to forget to tell me. Why didn't you change it to a studio address? I meant to. For how many years? 7. She nodded as though I had confirmed a diagnosis. We worked through her questions. She did not ask how to perform the job so much as why the job had been designed around Dean's attention. Why were vendor statements printed when invoices were digital? Because Dean liked to make notes on paper. Why did the delivery calendar require separate confirmation by text? Because Dean checked text messages faster than email. Why were client deposits highlighted in green? Because he once confused a deposit with a final payment and ordered expensive hardware too early. Janelle removed her glasses and cleaned them with a cloth. You built an entire administrative system around one man's habits. I built something he would use. Same thing. It worked. Did it? The question irritated me because Celia had asked versions of it too. The studio is successful, I said. I didn't ask about the studio. Janelle put her glasses back on. I'm not criticizing you. I managed 6 surgeons for 12 years. Every Tuesday, I personally reminded a grown man that Wednesday existed. Did it work? He was in surgery every Wednesday. So yes. Then the practice sold, and I took 3 weeks off. He missed a procedure because no one reminded him what day came after Tuesday. I stirred coffee that did not need stirring. Systems should make people more capable, she said. Ours made him dependent. That sounds familiar. She closed the folder. I can do this job, but I'm going to change things. Please do. Dean may not like it. He doesn't have to like Wednesdays. They still happen. She smiled. You really are retired. I wasn't. Not yet. But I was getting better at leaving. Dean lasted 4 days before complaining about Janelle. She makes me submit purchase requests, he said while unpacking groceries. It's your money. That's what I told her. What did she say? She said the business also has money, and I need to learn the difference. I took a carton of eggs from the bag. Still smart. She changed the calendar colors. Unforgivable. And she keeps forwarding me questions with the phrase, owner decision. I tried not to smile. He looked at me. You told her about that. She read the folders. This is mutiny by office supply. Dean had volunteered to handle groceries when we divided household tasks. His first trip produced eggs, coffee, mustard, 3 kinds of cheese, and no actual meals. What are we eating tonight? I asked. I bought food. You bought ingredients for a very upsetting omelet. We can order. We ordered twice this week. He leaned both hands on the counter. I am running a company and training a new employee. So plan groceries before you go. You used to just know what we needed. There's a list on the refrigerator. I didn't see it. It's bright yellow. I thought it was one of your warnings. I picked up the note. Milk, chicken, spinach, rice, onions. We have mustard. We have 3 mustards. Exactly. Stability. We ate cheese omelets with mustard. They were not good, but Dean made them, and I did not rescue dinner. Halfway through, he asked if I wanted to go away for the weekend before I started work. Where? Blue Ridge. That inn you liked? The one with the porch? And the tiny soaps you stole? I did not steal them. They were included. You took 12. I paid resort pricing. I owned the plumbing. His smile arrived slowly. Come with me. The reasonable answer was no. We were not fixed. A scenic drive would not change what waited at home. But I missed him. Not the husband I wanted him to become. Him. Dean singing the wrong words to songs. Dean stopping at roadside antique stores and pretending not to care when I found better tools than he did. Dean making coffee too strong and accusing the mountains of blocking the view. Yes, I said. The relief on his face hurt. At the inn, rain gave way to a cold, clean Saturday. We hiked a trail neither of us was dressed for and ate sandwiches on a rock overlooking the valley. Dean did not mention the studio until the drive home. I did not mention the non-profit at all. That night, I slept in our bed. For a few hours, the old rhythm returned so naturally that I wondered whether I had imagined the rupture. At 6:12 Sunday morning, Dean's phone rang. He answered, listened, then sat up. What happened? I asked. Payroll didn't process. He switched on the lamp and started searching for his glasses. Call Janelle. She doesn't work Sundays. Call the accountant. He won't answer. His eyes met mine. I knew the login sequence. I knew where the bank verification would go, which menu hid the submission status, and which payroll representative sometimes answered early. Dean did not ask. He didn't have to. I got out of bed, put on my robe, and walked down the hall to the spare room. Behind me, he said, Mara. I stopped. I'm not asking you to fix it. Good. I'm asking where the emergency number is. In the payroll folder. At the studio. Yes. He stared at the phone in his hand. I closed the spare room door gently. For once, Sunday had arrived without anyone reminding him. Dean found the emergency number. He also found 3 emails from Janelle, reminding him to approve payroll by Friday afternoon, 1 text she had sent at 4:45, and a note clipped to the front of the folder that said, Dean, click approve before 5. He returned from the studio at 9 with coffee and a breakfast sandwich he did not eat. "It'll process tomorrow," he said. Good. There was no actual emergency. Also good. He stood at the kitchen counter, peeling the paper wrapper from the sandwich in narrow strips. Janelle could have approved it. Does she have authorization? No. Then she couldn't. She could have called. She did. More than one phone call. I drank my coffee. Dean dropped the paper strips into the wrapper. "You're enjoying this again?" "No. You have a look. I have one face. We've established that's false." He waited for me to smile. When I didn't, he pushed the untouched sandwich toward me. "I forgot," he said. "There. That's the whole scandal. There is no scandal. Then stop looking at me like I left troops behind. That isn't how I'm looking at you. It's how I feel when you're quiet." The answer was honest enough to disarm me. I set down my cup. "I'm trying not to rescue you and not to punish you. Apparently, those behaviors are separated by about 3 inches, and I haven't found the ruler." Dean looked tired. "I didn't ask you to rescue me. You came to the spare room door with your phone in your hand. I asked where the number was. You knew I would understand the rest." He looked down at the sandwich. "Yeah." It was the first time he admitted that our old system had depended on things he did not need to say. "I'm sorry," he said. "So am I." He took his breakfast upstairs. I heard the bedroom door close, then the shower start. The following morning, Celia handed me a ring of keys heavy enough to qualify as exercise. "Front door, storage, supply cage, van 2, van 3, mystery key," she said, touching each one. "What does the mystery key open?" If we knew, it wouldn't be the mystery key. My new office was a narrow room with one cloudy window, 2 metal filing cabinets, and a desk assembled from 3 different desks. Someone had left a cactus on the sill. It leaned toward the light with the determined posture of a plant trying to escape. I set my bag down. Celia pointed at it. "Lunch?" "Yes." "Gloves?" "1 pair." Progress. My first staff meeting lasted 37 minutes and included an argument over donated bathroom vanities, a volunteer coordinator requesting 2 additional phones, and Malcolm announcing that van 3 was making an expensive sound. I wrote down every decision, assigned a name and deadline to each task, and sent a summary before anyone had left the room. Celia appeared in my doorway 10 minutes later. "You scared them," she said. "With the email?" "With competence before 9 a.m. They'll adjust. You assigned the communications assistant a deadline of 1300, 1 p.m. She knows. She thinks you believe she doesn't." I looked at the message. I used 24-hour time once, 7 times. I can revise. "Don't apologize for being organized. Just remember, these people are not soldiers. I know. You told Malcolm to execute his maintenance plan." He liked it. Malcolm was in the Marines. He likes suffering. She took a peppermint from a bowl on my desk, though I had not put the bowl there. "Observe for a month," she reminded me. "I am observing. You reorganized the shared drive." I added labels. "It's 10:15. I leaned back in the chair. "Would you prefer I do nothing? I would prefer you let us be imperfect long enough to learn which imperfections matter." She unwrapped the peppermint. "Your husband got used to you making everything work, didn't he?" The question irritated me because it was both personal and accurate. "So did I said. Celia nodded. "There she is." "Who?" "The part of you I hired, not the resume, the woman who can identify her own fingerprints at the scene. Then she left with my peppermint. The work filled the week without swallowing it. I rode with Malcolm to inspect a sagging porch, negotiated delivery dates for roofing materials, and watched a volunteer named Brent spend 20 minutes explaining a spreadsheet he had built incorrectly. I did not take the laptop away from him. I asked questions until he found the broken formula himself. It took forever. It also meant he fixed the next one without me. At home, Dean and I moved around each other with careful politeness. He handled groceries by ordering online, which produced actual meals and 6 pounds of oranges because he misunderstood the quantity field. I ate an orange every morning. He took 3 to the studio and left the rest arranged in a bowl like an accusation. Janelle's systems began appearing in his complaints. She wants purchase orders for everything over $500. That's normal. She wants separate debit cards for the shop and client meetings. Also normal. She asked why we use household savings to bridge cash flow. I stopped peeling my orange. Dean stood across the island with his laptop open. We have the Chesapeake Hardwoods invoice next week. Calder's final payment won't clear until after delivery. How much is the gap? $6,800. And payroll? Covered. Insurance? Covered. Then delay the lumber order. It's for the Preston conference table. If I delay, the schedule moves. Use the money you set aside for the planer. His expression hardened. That's what I'm trying not to do. You already said the planer was postponed. Postponed isn't canceled. Neither of us touched the oranges. Dean rotated the laptop toward me. Our joint household reserve account was open on the screen. Deployment money had formed its original base years ago, but both of us had added to it since. We had used it to replace a furnace, repair the roof, and keep Vance Grain alive during its first winter. We float the invoice, he said. Calder pays, the money goes back. We've done that before. Exactly. I also knew the full schedule and cash position before. Janelle sent you questions? No, you just told me about one invoice. He turned the laptop back. I can show you the books. I don't want to review the books. Then trust me. This isn't about whether I trust you. It's literally money. It's about you asking me to step away from the business until you need the part where my resources make it easier. Our resources. The account is ours. The business is yours. You've been very clear about one of those only when it benefits you. He closed the laptop harder than necessary. You want me to fail. No, you want consequences. Yes. The words stopped him. I wiped orange pith from my fingers. Not disasters, not humiliation. Consequences. You postpone the machine. You rearrange the order. You tell a client the truth about timing. You make a decision using what the studio actually has. That account exists because we supported each other. It exists because we prepared for our household. The studio supports the household. So does my retirement, so does my new job. You called one a hobby and tried to assign the other to yourself. Dean stared at me. I had gone too far. Not because it was false, but because I had sharpened it to win. I'm sorry, I said. That was cruel. It was accurate. Accuracy can be cruel. He picked up his laptop. I'll use the equipment money, he said. Okay. He walked away, then stopped in the doorway. Janelle says the business needs a standing line of credit, so we stopped doing this. She's right. You could try sounding disappointed. I am disappointed. I'm also relieved someone is telling you the truth. I thought that was your job. It never should have been. He spent the rest of the evening in the studio. By Friday, the oranges were gone, and the silence had developed routines. Dean took calls on the back porch. I ate lunch at work instead of driving home. At night, he stayed in the main bedroom, and I stayed in the spare room, the quiet fan turning above me. Tessa invited us to dinner. I almost declined, but Nina sent a separate message. I bought wine and have hidden all ceremonial objects. Their townhouse smelled like roasted peppers and the cedar candle Tessa lit whenever she had not finished cleaning. Nina cooked while Tessa arranged crackers on a board large enough to suggest incoming guests. Who else is coming? I asked. No one, she said. I panic-bought cheese. Dean picked up a wedge. This one has ash in it. It's supposed to. Food shouldn't describe the building after a fire. For the first half hour, we were almost normal. Nina asked about Rebuild Richmond. I told them about the mystery key and Malcolm's campaign against modern lumber. Tessa laughed so hard at the 6 pounds of oranges that she had to set down her glass. Dean laughed too, but I caught the moment his face changed when I described the staff meeting. He had not heard the story. I'm glad you're enjoying the new unit, he said. Nina looked at him. The what? Work joke. It didn't sound funny. That's because you work in insurance. I know when something is covered. Tessa stepped between them with the cheese board. Dean has an open studio event coming up. Showcase, he corrected. Clients, designers, some local press. We're unveiling the Preston table if the lumber arrives. It will, I said. He glanced at me. Yes, it will. Tessa clapped once. I'm helping. With what? I asked. Food, invitations, styling, making sure he doesn't serve beer from a cooler. I have glasses, Dean said. You have jars. They're artisanal. Nina tilted her head at Tessa. When did you agree to this? This afternoon. For how long? It's one event. Dean put an arm around his sister. She's saving my life. The phrase landed lightly. Tessa smiled. I saw Nina see it too. On the drive home, Dean kept both hands on the wheel. You could come, he said, to the showcase. It matters to me. I know, that isn't an answer. I'll check the date. You have plans? I don't know my work schedule yet. It's a Saturday. Storm damage observes weekends. He let out a short breath. You light up when you talk about that place. Is that bad? No, it's just interesting. What is? You've known those people 5 minutes, and they get stories. I get folders. I turned toward the dark window. The folders were help. They felt like an exit manual. Maybe they were. Dean's hands tightened on the wheel. At home, he followed me upstairs. What are we doing? He asked. I don't know. You keep saying that, like, it's enough. It's the truth. You slept with me last weekend. Yes. You came away with me. Yes. And then Sunday morning, you closed a door in my face. I didn't close it in your face. I closed it before I walked back into the same job. I was asking for a phone number. You were asking me to become useful again. You're my wife. You're supposed to be useful to me. We both went still. Dean shut his eyes. That's not what I meant. I know. Do you? Yes, that's the problem. I always know what you meant. I translate it. I soften it. I find the version that lets us keep moving. He reached for me, then stopped before touching my arm. I apologized, he said. You did. I'm trying. I know. Then what else do you want? I looked past him into the main bedroom, at the bed we had shared, the wooden tray, the empty space on the dresser where my retirement frame had been. I think the spare room isn't far enough, I said. Dean lowered his hand. How far is far enough? I don't know. Stop saying that. I don't have another answer. Do you want me to leave? The question startled me. The house had come through my service in 100 practical ways, but Dean lived in every inch of it. His hands had rebuilt the porch railing. He had chosen the cedar shingles. The faint pencil marks inside the pantry showed where he planned each shelf before cutting it. No, I said. I'll go. His expression changed from anger to alarm. That isn't what I meant. I know. I'm not asking you to move out. I can't figure out what I want while we're performing marriage every day. Performing, dinner, groceries, thermostat. You fix a fan, I read it as hope. I leave a folder, you read it as abandonment. Those things mean something, yes. Too many things. Dean walked into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. His elbows rested on his knees, hands hanging loose between them. For how long? He asked. I don't know. He looked up sharply. A month? I said. We can start with a month. And then? We talk. We're talking now. We're translating. Badly. He pressed his palms together. This is because I said useful. No. That sentence didn't create anything. It just turned the light on. You know I didn't mean you exist to work for me. I know you don't believe that in a sentence. I'm not sure you know how to live like you don't believe it. His face folded for 1 second before he looked away. I sat beside him, leaving enough space that neither of us could mistake closeness for resolution. I don't want to punish you, I said. You keep saying that while describing punishments. I need to find out what I do when nobody is expecting me to hold their life together. I never asked you to hold my life together. You didn't have to. He stood and crossed to the dresser. The walnut watch tray sat where it always had, holding his watch, spare change, and a cufflink that had lost its partner 6 years earlier. If you leave, he said, People will think we're separating. We are separating. I mean, really separating. I looked at him. What do you think this is? Dean picked up the cufflink, turned it over, and put it back. You should take the house, he said. I'll stay at the studio. No, it's your house too. That's why I get to decide not to stay in it. I slept in the spare room one last night. In the morning, I found 6 apartment listings on my phone. 4 were too expensive. 1 smelled like cigarette smoke through the screen, and 1 was a small furnished unit in a brick duplex 15 minutes from Rebuild Richmond. The owner, a retired court reporter named Gwen Alvarez, showed it to me during lunch. She wore purple eyeglasses on a beaded chain and carried a flashlight, despite every light being on. Old wiring, she said. New panel. Pipes complain, but they work. Upstairs tenant plays cello. How often? Badly or in general? In general. Most evenings. Badly only when she's learning something. The living room had a narrow fireplace that no longer worked, a blue couch, and 2 windows facing east. The kitchen was barely wide enough to turn around without introducing yourself to the refrigerator. Morning light lay across the worn wood floor in a pale rectangle. I'll take it, I said. Gwen blinked. You haven't seen the closet. I've had smaller. Everybody says that before they see the closet. It was in fact very small. I signed a month-to-month lease. When I told Celia, she handed me a stack of supply requests. Congratulations, she said. Personal crisis does not exempt you from toner. I wasn't asking it to. You were staring at the wall for 7 minutes. I was thinking, do it while approving roofing nails. I took the requests. You're very nurturing. I bring people pound cake after the crisis. During the crisis, I assign toner. She paused at my office door. Don't turn this place into an excuse not to go home. I won't. You say that like you already have a cot picked out. There's room between the filing cabinets. There absolutely is not. Tessa found out before I could tell her. Dean called her while I was still at work, and she arrived at the Cedar House as I was packing. You rented an apartment? She said from the bedroom doorway. For a month. You don't rent an apartment for a month. You rent a cabin. An apartment has intent. I folded a sweater into a duffel. Nina said to help and not editorialize, Tessa added. I like Nina. Yes, everyone does. It's exhausting. She picked up another sweater, folded it badly, and put it on top of mine. Dean is downstairs acting like somebody canceled gravity. He knew I was considering it. He didn't think you'd actually go. That sentence has been doing a lot of work in this family. Tessa sat on the edge of the bed. What do you expect him to do? Live here. You know what I mean. I expect him to decide things without assuming I will absorb the consequences. He's hiring someone. He's buying groceries. He apologized. I know. What else is there? I zipped the duffel. That's what I need space to understand. She shook her head. People don't leave to understand. They leave because they've decided. Then why are you asking me questions? That's not fair. No, it isn't. Tessa's eyes filled, and I immediately hated myself. I sat beside her. I'm sorry. He called me crying, she said. The image was so private I wished she had kept it from me. He doesn't know who he is without you, she continued. That isn't a reason to stay. It's a reason not to walk out while he figures it out. I spent years making sure he never had to. She wiped under one eye with the side of her thumb. You make it sound like loving him was some tactical error. No, loving him was the easiest part. Then why are you doing this? Because I don't want to find out 10 years from now that love was the only part of me he ever learned to receive, without taking for granted. Dean did not help me load the car. He stood in the living room beneath my retirement flag while I carried out 2 duffels, work clothes, toiletries, a coffee maker, and the old quilt from the spare room. I left the folders, the kitchen equipment, the furniture, and nearly everything that made the house look like our life. At the door, he said, "You forgot your flag." No, I didn't. His eyes lifted toward it. It belongs to you more than the couch does. I'm not dividing property, Dean. I'm going away for a month. Right. I waited for him to ask me not to go. I was not proud of wanting that. He didn't. At the duplex, Gwen helped me carry the coffee maker and asked no questions about the duffels. The upstairs tenant played the same 6 notes for 40 minutes. I ate takeout noodles on the blue couch and reached automatically for my phone every time a car slowed outside. Dean sent one message at 10:11. Made it home? I stared at the words. Yes. The typing bubble appeared, vanished, appeared again. Good night, Mara. Good night. The apartment was too quiet after the cello stopped. The radiator clicked. The refrigerator hummed. No one walked down a hall or opened a cabinet or breathed on the other side of a wall. I slept 7 uninterrupted hours. That frightened me more than crying would have. The studio showcase was 10 days later. Dean mentioned it twice by text and once during a careful phone call about the joint electric bill. I said I would come. By then, Tessa had spent 3 evenings at Vance Grain. She sent photographs of table arrangements, serving boards, and strings of lights hung from the rafters. Her messages grew shorter as the week went on. Nina sent one of her own. He volunteered her to manage RSVPs. There are 86 people. She thought this was cheese. I typed, "Now you know why she panic buys it." Nina replied, "I am trying to be supportive, but if he calls her his lifesaver again, I may put him in the supply cage." I arrived at the studio an hour before the event. The warehouse had been transformed. Linen runners softened the work tables. Small lamps warmed the brick walls. Finished pieces stood beneath discreet cards with prices and descriptions. Tessa was kneeling under the refreshment table with packing tape between her teeth. "You're early," she said. "You're under furniture. The tablecloth is too long. Scissors. Dean says we can't cut it because it's rented." I crouched and helped her fold the fabric under itself. "Where's Nina?" I asked. "Getting ice." Again. "Where's Dean?" "Talking to the photographer." Tessa pulled tape from the roll with her teeth. "He changed the layout this morning. I see that. And added a coffee station. I see that too. And invited 14 people yesterday." I smoothed the fold. "You can tell him no." She gave me the look of a person who had been too busy to discover that option. Janelle appeared carrying name tags. "The coffee service needs an outlet, but every circuit on that wall is running lighting." "Owner decision," I said. Her red glasses flashed. He told me to ask Tessa. Tessa's head emerged from beneath the cloth. "I don't know electricity." "No," Janelle said. "You apparently know everything else." The Preston conference table stood at the center of the studio, finished just hours earlier. The top was beautiful. Wide ash boards joined so cleanly the grain seemed to flow from one to the next. I ran my hand over the edge. "Not the original lumber," Dean said behind me. I turned. He wore a dark jacket over a black shirt. Sawdust clung to one sleeve near the cuff. "Chesapeake couldn't rush the walnut," he said. "Raymond said they were already covering 2 promises you made before you left." "What promises?" "Delivery flexibility, favorable pricing. Apparently those belong to you, not the account. They belong to years of asking early and paying on time." That's what he said. The fact that Dean repeated it without blaming me felt like progress. The exhaustion in his face made progress hard to celebrate. "The ash works," I said. "It does." We stood beside the table while people began arriving outside. "You look good," he said. "So do you. Are you coming home after?" "No." His jaw shifted, but he nodded. The doors opened. For 2 hours, Dean smiled, shook hands, discussed joinery, and moved through the studio like the man everybody believed he was. Tessa refilled glasses, fixed name tags, found more ice, answered questions about parking, and carried trays no one noticed had become empty. Near the end, I heard Dean introduce her to a designer. "My sister saved this whole night," he said proudly. "I just build the furniture. She handles everything else." Tessa looked across the room at me. For the first time, she did not smile when he said it. Tessa's expression lasted less than a second. Then the designer asked where the restroom was. Someone knocked over a glass, and the room demanded her again. She pointed toward the hall, grabbed a towel, and disappeared into the crowd. Dean did not notice. The showcase was successful by every visible measure. Clients touched table edges with reverent fingers. A restaurant owner asked for an estimate on a bar. The photographer took pictures of Dean beside the Preston table, first smiling, then serious, then pretending to examine the grain. Janelle collected contact information on a tablet and prevented 3 people from setting wine on unfinished samples. At 9, a breaker tripped. The coffee station died, along with 1 strand of lights and the speaker playing music near the entrance. Dean was speaking to a magazine editor. He looked across the room and called, "Tess?" Tessa stood behind the refreshment table holding a trash bag. "I don't know the panel," she said. "Janelle can show you." Janelle, who was processing a deposit with a client, looked up over her red glasses. "I'm working," she said. Dean excused himself from the editor and came toward us. "It's probably just overloaded." "Then unplug something," Tessa said. "The event isn't over. The coffee is. We have another hour." Tessa tied the trash bag so hard the plastic stretched white around the knot. "Then you handle it." Dean blinked. "What?" I said, "Handle it." Nina appeared beside her carrying 2 empty ice buckets. Her lipstick had worn off, and a damp patch darkened the front of her blouse. "We're leaving," Nina said. "We can't leave yet," Tessa told her. "Yes, we can." Dean glanced toward the guests. "Can we do this later?" Tessa laughed once. It sounded like him, which may have been why it finally reached him. "You changed the guest count 4 times, she said. "You added coffee yesterday. You moved the tables after I set them. You told the caterer I would accept delivery at noon without asking me. I thought you were coming early. I was coming at 3, and I thanked you." The sentence hovered there. Tessa looked at me, not for help, for confirmation that she had heard what she thought she heard. I picked up one of the ice buckets. "I'll carry this out." Dean turned to me. "Mara, don't. I'm helping Nina. You know what this looks like. To whom?" He glanced around. No one was watching. That was the problem with believing the room revolved around you. Even your worst moments often happened without an audience. Tessa took the other bucket. "I love you," she told him. "The event is beautiful. I am going home. You said you'd help clean up. I said I'd help with the event. Then the event became 2 weeks of my life. You could have said no. I did. You kept changing the question." Nina touched Tessa's back. Together we carried the buckets through the loading door. Outside, the air was cold and smelled like wet brick. Tessa set her bucket in Nina's trunk and leaned both hands on the bumper. "I sound like you," she said. "You sound tired. He called me his lifesaver. I heard." I liked it. I know, that's the embarrassing part. No, the embarrassing part is how long it can work. Nina closed the trunk. "I would like the record to show that I hated it by Tuesday." "You hate being thanked?" Tessa asked. "I hate gratitude used as payroll." Tessa rubbed her forehead. "He's not a monster." "No one said he was," I said. "He just gets excited. He sees the finished thing before the work, and then he starts assigning people to close the distance." The description was so precise I wondered how long she had known it without applying it to me. "He really is trying with you," she added. "I know. Don't make me regret seeing your side." "Tessa, there shouldn't be a side where your time belongs to you." She looked back toward the glowing studio windows. "He's going to think we planned this. He thought I planned a payroll error. That's insane." It was also 6 in the morning. Nina opened the passenger door. "Go home before either of you starts defending him again." They left. I returned inside because my coat and purse were in Dean's office. The music had come back. So had the coffee. Malcolm, wearing a jacket that looked older than the building, stood near the breaker panel with a paper cup. "I unplugged the decorative heater," he said. "What are you doing here?" "Free cheese. You fixed the circuit." I contained multitudes. By 10, the last guest was gone. I stacked empty glasses into plastic racks while Janelle closed out the payment tablet. Dean gathered name tags from the floor. "You don't have to clean," he said. "I'm finishing this rack." Tessa didn't have to make a scene. She said no. She waited until there were clients in the room. No one noticed. I noticed. That isn't the same thing. He tossed a name tag into the trash. You two looked at each other all night. We've known each other 18 years. She thinks I'm using people now. I don't know what Tessa thinks. Yes, you do. She repeats your sentences. I placed the final glass in the rack. She repeated yours for a long time. Dean's face tightened. That was unkind, I said. No, keep going. Apparently tonight is feedback night. I'm not doing this here. Of course not. You're off duty. I picked up my coat. He followed me toward the office door. Did you come because you wanted to support me, or because you wanted to see whether I could do it without you? I came because you asked. That isn't an answer. Yes, it is. I cared that it mattered to you. Past tense. The event mattered to you. I came. He leaned against the work table. The room looked enormous without people. Small spills marked the concrete. Crumbs and torn paper napkins covered the refreshment table. Behind him, the ash conference table gleamed under 3 pendant lights. We had a good night, he said, before all that. You did. We did. You talked to clients. You knew what they wanted before I did. It felt normal. It felt familiar. What's the difference? I put on my coat. Familiar is what my body does before I decide. He looked down at the floor. The month is almost up, he said. I know. I hired Janelle. I opened the business credit line. I haven't asked you for money again. I apologized without footnotes. I'm doing what you wanted. You are. Then come home. There was no manipulation in his voice. No humor. Just a request from the man I had shared 18 years with. I'm not ready, I said. What are you waiting to see? I don't think it's about what you do next. What else could it be about? What I want? He stared at me, as though the answer were written in a language he had not expected to need. I drove back to the duplex with my hands locked around the steering wheel. The upstairs tenant was playing scales when I arrived. 6 notes ascending, 6 notes descending, each attempt slightly cleaner than the last. The next afternoon, Tessa brought me 3 containers of leftover cheese and a tray of pastries. I never want to see a cracker again, she said. She walked around the apartment, inspecting the small kitchen and the eastern windows. This is where you're living. It has plumbing. So does a gas station. The upstairs neighbor plays cello. Does she know how? Gradually. Tessa sat on the blue couch and placed the pastries on her knees. Dean called. I assumed. He apologized. That's good. He said I should have told him sooner. That sounds like Dean. I did tell him. Not well, maybe. I made jokes. I complained to Nina. I said yes while hoping he would hear no in my tone. That also sounds familiar. She pulled at the cardboard edge of the pastry tray. I thought you were punishing him, she said, with the studio, moving out, all of it. Do you still? I think part of you wanted him to feel what it's like without you. I considered lying. Yes, that's punishment. Maybe. Tessa looked surprised by the answer. I don't want his business to fail, I said. I don't want him lonely or scared. But I did want the absence to have weight. I wanted to know I hadn't imagined everything I carried. Did it? Yes. Did that make you feel better? Sometimes. She nodded slowly. Thank you for not pretending you're above it. I'm trying to retire from that, too. We ate pastries on the couch. Tessa told me she had refused to manage the showcase follow-up and that Dean had accepted it after 1 argument and 2 defensive text messages. Janelle was sending the thank you emails. The caterer had collected the rented linens. Nothing had collapsed. Before leaving, Tessa stood at the door with her coat buttoned. I'm still his sister, she said. I know. I want you two to fix this. I know, but I won't ask you to go back because he's having a hard time. Something in my chest loosened. Thank you, I said. At work, I got better at letting other people finish things imperfectly. Brent's spreadsheets remained ugly but accurate. Malcolm repaired Van 3 without submitting the maintenance form, and I made him complete it without standing over his shoulder. When Loretta Bell's roofing crew arrived, I sent the assigned site coordinator instead of going myself. Loretta called the office and demanded me. I was told you're very important now, she said. I'm exactly important enough to send someone qualified. He's quiet. Ask him about baseball. I hate baseball. Then you'll have something to argue about. She called 2 days later to say the roof no longer leaked and the quiet man supported the wrong team. I marked the project complete and did not add myself to the follow-up visit. The month ended on a Thursday. I went to the Cedar House after work. Dean had cooked short ribs, the same meal from the night everything changed. The retirement flag still hung above the fireplace. Fresh flowers sat on the table, out of their plastic this time. I thought we should have a real conversation, he said. We ate first. The meat was tender, the potatoes had not split. Afterward, Dean placed a sheet of paper between us. It listed household responsibilities, separate studio boundaries, and the name of a marriage counselor Tessa had recommended. I can do better, he said. I believe you. His eyes searched my face. Then stay. I looked around the dining room, the walnut table, the cedar walls, the life we had made beautiful by making its costs difficult to see. I don't want to come home, I said. Dean's breathing changed. Not yet. I had spent a month trying to make the answer less painful. It had not become less painful. It had only become true. Not ever, I said. I think we should divorce. Dean said, no. Not angrily, not loudly. He said it the way he might reject a stain color. I rested my hands on either side of my plate. I'm not asking permission. You don't mean it. I do. You said you needed a month. You took a month. I gave you space. Yes, I hired someone. I changed the accounts. I stopped asking you for help. I hung the flag. His eyes flicked toward the fireplace as if the frame might testify. I see what you've done, I said. Then what was the point? The point wasn't to pass a test. You told me what was wrong. I fixed it. You changed your behavior for a month. That's generally how fixing behavior works. I know. I'm not saying it means nothing. Apparently, it means divorce. He stood so quickly his knee struck the table. My water glass trembled, sending rings across the surface. Is there somebody else? No. Don't answer that fast. There is nobody else. The woman from work? Celia? I don't know. Anybody. I'm not leaving you for Celia. He rubbed both hands over his face. You know what I mean. I do. There is no one. Then this is insane. I let the word pass. Dean walked to the windows, then back to the table. We haven't tried counseling. I'll go to counseling if it helps us end this without destroying each other. He stared at me. That's cold, he said. It's the opposite. No. It's a clean little sentence that lets you feel honorable while you blow up 18 years. My throat tightened. Do you think this doesn't hurt me? You're the one doing it. That doesn't make me unhurt. It should. I looked at the uneaten half of my dinner. Would it help you if I were crueler? You are cruel. You just don't raise your voice. Dean grabbed the sheet of household responsibilities from the table. He crushed it in one hand and immediately began trying to flatten it again. I spent years waiting for the army to give you back, he said. That's the joke, right? I thought retirement meant I finally got to have a wife who wasn't leaving, and the first thing you do is leave. The army didn't make this decision. It trained you to cut things off. It trained me to stay in bad conditions until there was a safe way out. His head came up. So, I'm a bad condition now? We are. Don't turn us into weather. I don't know how else to say it. Try saying you stopped loving me. I didn't. That would almost be better. I know. He dropped back into his chair. The paper remained wrinkled beneath his palm. Was any of it real? He asked. All of it. Even when you were planning to go? I wasn't planning this at dinner. I was planning potatoes. A broken sound came from him, half laugh and half something else. I reached across the table. He pulled his hand away. Don't, he said. You don't get to comfort me. He was right. I stood and carried my plate to the kitchen because leaving it on the table felt unbearable. Behind me, Dean laughed again, this time without humor. You're washing the plate? I don't know what else to do with it. Leave it. I set it in the sink. At the front door, he said, "Take the flag." I looked toward the fireplace. "Not tonight. You said it belonged to you more than the couch." "It does. Then take it. I'm not climbing over the mantel while you're angry. I'll get it. Dean." He stopped. For 1 second, I thought he might throw it. He never would have. That was not who he was. But pain had made both of us imagine versions of the other we could fight more easily. "I'll come back for my things when we're ready," I said. "When you're ready?" "Yes. That's been the whole marriage, hasn't it?" I opened the door. "No," I said. "That's the story you tell when you need to forget you had choices." I cried in the car before starting the engine. There was nothing disciplined about it. My nose ran. My shoulders shook. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel and made a sound I would have crossed a building to investigate if it came from anyone else. The porch light stayed on. Dean did not come outside. At the duplex, the upstairs cello played a slow melody instead of scales. I sat on the floor with my back against the blue couch and listened until the music stopped. Celia found me at my desk at 7 the next morning. "You look terrible," she said. "Thank you. Go home. I just got here. Then it'll be a short commute. I have the materials call at 8. Brent can run it. Brent pronounces gypsum with a hard G. The roofers will survive." I opened the shared schedule. Celia closed my laptop. "My marriage is over," I said. "I assumed something like that. From my face? From the fact that you've aligned those 3 pens 6 times." I looked down. The pens were perfectly parallel. "I can work." "I know. That's your favorite symptom." She pulled the chair away from the opposite side of my desk and sat. "Did you decide? Or did something happen?" I decided. "Is he dangerous?" "No." "Are you safe?" "Yes." "Then I'm not going to tell you whether you're right. You're going to spend the next year asking everybody to vote, and none of us lived in your house. I'm not asking for a vote." "Good. Take the day anyway." I stayed for the materials call. Brent ran it. He pronounced gypsum incorrectly, and no one died. At 9:30, I went home. Tessa arrived that afternoon with Nina beside her. Dean had called. "He's wrecked," Tessa said before taking off her coat. "I know. He thought the month was helping. It did." "How did it help if this is where you ended up?" Nina touched her elbow. "Tess." "No, I'm trying to understand." Tessa looked at me. "He did what you asked. I didn't ask him to earn me back. You let him think he could." I told him I didn't know. He heard hope. So did I. Tessa's anger faltered. Nina took the chair beside the window. "Did you want to go back?" I sat on the couch. Sometimes. Usually when I missed him. Then I'd imagine moving my clothes back, making coffee, eating at our table, and every part of me felt tired. "That can change," Tessa said. "Maybe. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life grading whether it has." She folded her arms. "He says you won't even try counseling." "I'll go. I won't use it to pretend I'm undecided. You decided after 1 month." "No." I admitted it after 1 month. Tessa got up and walked to the little kitchen. There was nowhere to go in the apartment without remaining visible. She opened a cabinet, closed it, and pressed both palms to the counter. "I'm not choosing between you," she said. "I'm not asking you to. If you hurt him, I'm allowed to be angry." "Yes." She turned. "You always agree when I want to fight." "No, I don't." "Yes, you do. It's infuriating. I can disagree if it would help." Nina covered her mouth to hide a smile. Tessa's eyes filled. "I love you too." That almost undid me. "I know," I said. "I'm still going to his house after this. You should. I'm bringing him food. He probably hasn't eaten." She pointed at me. "That. Stop doing that, what?" "Knowing." I looked away. Nina stood and hugged me first. Tessa waited, still angry, then wrapped both arms around me so tightly my ribs hurt. The counselor saw us twice. The first session established that Dean wanted to save the marriage and I did not. The second helped him believe I was not concealing a more acceptable reason. "People don't just leave a life because they're tired," he said. The counselor, a compact woman named Dr. Kaplan, asked, "Why not?" "Because everybody is tired." I said, "That's what I told myself." Dean looked at me. "You could have told me. I tried in pieces. You gave me instructions. You didn't tell me we were dying. I didn't know until you called the part of me that survived a hobby." He closed his eyes. "Doctor." Kaplan asked us to describe what we wanted from the legal process. Dean said fairness. I said a clean separation. He heard those as opposing answers. The attorneys turned 18 years into categories: house, studio, retirement accounts, vehicles, furniture, insurance, debt, equity. Nothing was hidden. That almost made it worse. We had built exactly what we thought we were building. At the first mediation meeting, Dean arrived with a legal pad and 3 estimates of the Cedar House's value. I brought 1 page. My lawyer had asked twice if I was sure. The mediator, Mr. Feld, adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Vance, your proposal gives Mr. Vance the house and most of its contents, contingent on refinancing the mortgage solely in his name. You retain your retirement accounts, personal vehicle, and listed personal effects. Each party keeps the accounts and obligations associated with their current employment or business." "Yes." Dean looked at me. "What about your interest in the studio?" "I'm releasing it." "You spent a month telling me how much you did there. I know what I did." "Then why give it up?" "Because I don't want the studio." Mr. Feld waited, pen poised. Dean glanced at his attorney. "Is this some kind of strategy?" "No," I said. "You're giving me the house? If you refinance it and remove me from every obligation tied to it, you put more into the down payment. Yes. Your VA eligibility made the original loan possible. Yes. And now you're just walking away? I'm keeping my retirement intact. You're keeping the studio intact. The house gives you the equity difference depending on the appraisal. It's not nothing." "That isn't what I asked. I don't want to live there." Dean leaned back. "Now you want me stuck with it." The mediator said his name softly. "No," I said. "I want you to have the life you said we were building. That sounds rehearsed. It isn't." He stared at the proposal again. The house, the furniture, the studio, the truck, visible proof of the future he had wanted me to join. "What do you take?" he asked. "My uniforms, photographs, my father's toolbox, the kitchen chair from our first apartment, my flag." "That's it?" "And the items on the attached list." The attached list fit on half a page. Dean looked offended by how little I wanted. I understood. If I fought for the walnut table, he could call the divorce a dispute over property. If I demanded the Cedar House, he could believe I wanted the life but not him. "I need time," he said. "Take it." The refinance took longer than either of us expected. Rates had changed. The new payment was higher. Dean complained once through his lawyer, then stopped when mine reminded him he could sell instead. He chose to keep it. When the settlement was ready, I returned to the house with boxes. Dean had placed my flag on the dining table, still in its walnut frame. My uniforms hung together in garment bags. My father's toolbox sat by the stairs. The old kitchen chair was in the garage. "You really want that thing?" Dean asked. The seat was scratched, one rung repaired with glue, the faded blue paint worn through at the edges. "Yes, I can make you a better one." "I know." We carried it to my car together. At the open trunk, Dean kept one hand on the chair back. "Everyone thinks I won," he said. I looked at him. "The house," he continued, "the business, no claim on my work. I'm not responsible for what people call it. Does it feel like winning to you? No." He released the chair. For the first time since I had known him, Dean stood in the driveway of the Cedar House with nothing in his hands and no way to turn the moment into something useful. I drove away before either of us could say something that sounded final. The chair rattled in the trunk at every turn. One of its uneven legs knocked against the wheel well in a steady rhythm, as if the past had found a small wooden fist. At the duplex, Gwen helped me carry it inside. "This is the chair?" she asked. "It's a chair. This is the chair a woman brings home when she leaves a house full of custom furniture?" Yes. She examined the repaired rung. Sentimental? Cheap. Those are usually the same thing after enough time. We placed it beside the east-facing window. The faded blue looked strange against the blue couch, but in the morning light, the scratches showed silver. The settlement became final on a Tuesday that otherwise contained a roofing shortage, a broken printer, and a volunteer who had ordered 400 left-handed work gloves. "They make left-handed gloves?" Brent asked. "No," I said. "Then what did he order?" 400 regular gloves labeled wrong. Can we return them?" Not after Malcolm opened 6 boxes to prove a point. Celia came into my office holding the court email on a page I had printed without remembering why. "You want to go home?" she asked. "No." "You want to break something?" I looked toward the printer. "Something we don't already hate," she clarified. "I'm fine. That word has killed more conversations than weather." I picked up the page. The language was plain. Marriage dissolved. Agreement incorporated. Each party restored to the status of an unmarried person. 18 years had become a status. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do," I said. Celia pulled the guest chair closer. "Nothing is allowed. I'm at work. That has never stopped you from doing nothing. It has only made you sneaky about it." I laughed, then covered my mouth because the laugh had turned into a sob without warning. Celia sat with me until it passed. She did not touch me, offer wisdom, or tell me I had made the right decision. When I could breathe normally, she handed me a tissue and said Malcolm had opinions about the gloves if I needed a less complicated emergency. That evening, I ate cereal on the blue couch. The upstairs cello practiced the opening of the same piece 22 times. I almost texted Dean to ask whether he had received the decree. Then I pictured his phone lighting up in the Cedar house and could not decide whether the message would be kindness or intrusion. I set the phone face down. He sent one at 9:40. Got it. I wrote, "Me too." The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. He sent, "I hope you're okay." I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. "I hope you are too," I wrote. That was the last personal thing we said for almost 2 months. The practical messages continued. A medical bill had gone to the house. The insurance company needed confirmation that I had removed my car. The electric account had been transferred, but the online profile still showed my email. Every message was polite enough to be entered into evidence. Dean kept the Cedar house exactly as he had promised. He refinanced it, paid the higher mortgage, and sent confirmation through his attorney. He kept Vance Grain, the walnut table, the abstract painting, the bedroom set he had built in Kentucky, and the cedar planters along the porch. For a while, he made possession look like victory. Tessa showed me photographs because she had not yet learned that not every update was neutral. Dean repainted the den. He replaced the old porch lights with black metal fixtures. He hosted a dinner for 2 designers and a contractor, cooking short ribs and serving wine in actual glasses. He bought glasses, Tessa said over lunch, growth. He also bought a rug that cost more than my first car. That seems less like growth. He says the room needed warmth. We sat outside a sandwich shop near her office. Nina was traveling for work, and Tessa had ordered enough food for both of them out of habit. "He's trying to make it his," she said. "It is his." You know what I mean. I did. Dean had spent years calling the house ours while arranging it around a future he believed he controlled. Now that it was legally his, he needed it to feel chosen instead of left. Tessa picked the tomatoes from her sandwich and placed them in a precise red pile. "He asked me to help with the dinner. Did you?" I recommended a caterer. That was help. I did not call the caterer. Also, growth. She smiled. He burned the first batch of short ribs. What did he do? Ordered pizza. The old Dean would have called me from the kitchen, furious at the recipe, the oven, and the animal for containing difficult tissue. The new Dean fed his guests pizza. I was proud of him. I hated that pride still came so easily. "How is the studio?" I asked. Tessa looked at me over her sandwich. You're not supposed to ask. I know. Janelle has him on a budget. He says she's a despot. She'll be pleased. The Preston table led to another order. That's good. He's working a lot. He always worked a lot, more now. I folded my napkin. Tessa, I'm not asking you to fix anything. You're putting information in the room and hoping I'll volunteer. Her expression tightened, then she nodded. I did that. You're allowed to tell me he's having a hard time. He is. I'm allowed not to do anything about it. I know. Neither of us enjoyed the sentence, but it held. At Rebuild Richmond, my own systems began surviving my absence. That did not happen accidentally. Celia made me assign deputies for every active project after she found me answering messages during a dental appointment. You were numb, she said. Only on one side. You sent 3 emails with half your face. They were accurate. You are confusing ability with permission. She required me to choose someone to cover each weekly materials call. Brent improved enough that contractors stopped asking to speak to me. A site coordinator named Aisha Morgan took over volunteer deployment and changed the sign-up form I had designed. Her version was better. I told her so without adding 3 suggestions. The effort nearly caused a medical event. When Loretta Bell's repaired roof survived the first hard storm, she delivered a pound cake to the office. She brought it herself, wearing the pink rubber boots and carrying an umbrella wide enough to disrupt traffic. You sent that quiet man again, she told me. He's qualified. He still likes the wrong team. We all have flaws. She looked around the office. These people listen to you? Sometimes. Your husband didn't? The question was so direct that Brent stopped pretending not to hear. Sometimes, I said. Loretta nodded as though that answered more than it did. She cut the cake with a plastic knife and made everyone take a slice before she left. I ate mine at my desk. Dean's truck disappeared from the studio parking lot sometime in late winter. I noticed because Vance Grain was 2 blocks from a hardware supplier we used, not because I had driven past to check. A smaller used pickup stood in its place. Tessa confirmed the sale when I did not ask. He said the lease was ridiculous. It was. You told him that when he got it. I did. He says you're not allowed to be right retroactively. That sounds healthy. The house went on the market 3 weeks later. I found out from Gwen, of all people. She knocked on my door carrying her tablet. "This your old place?" she asked. The listing photographs showed the cedar exterior washed in late afternoon light. Inside, every room had been staged to appear both expensive and uninhabited. The new rug warmed the den. The black porch fixtures looked good. The walnut dining table remained, set for 6 with white plates no one owned. "Why are you looking at houses?" I asked. "I enjoy other people's countertops." I scrolled through the photographs. The space above the fireplace was empty. Dean had returned my retirement flag, but he had not rehung the abstract painting. The blank wall looked brighter than everything around it. "Nice house," Gwen said. "Yes, you miss it?" "Parts. You want it back?" "No." She took the tablet. "Then don't keep looking. Real estate pictures are pornography for regret." Dean called that evening. I had not heard his voice since mediation. For 1 second, I considered letting it go to voicemail. Then I answered. "Hi," he said. "Hi." A pause opened. "I assume you've heard about the house?" "Yes." "Tessa?" "Gwen." "Who's Gwen?" "My landlord." "Right." He sounded tired but not broken. That mattered to me. "I thought I could keep it," he said. "You could. I mean, without changing everything else." He told me the numbers without drama. The refinance cost more than expected. Utilities had risen. The studio could cover his income or its expansion, but not both at the pace he had planned. Janelle had helped him build an actual cash forecast. He had postponed new equipment, reduced his draws, sold the truck, and sublet the back section of the warehouse to an upholsterer. "The house is too much for one person," he said. It was a lot for 2. I didn't know how much. I said nothing. "I'm not asking for sympathy." "I know. I wanted you to hear it from me." "Thank you." Another pause. "I got an offer yesterday," he said. "Less than I wanted." Enough. Are you taking it? Yes, I'm glad. He laughed softly. Are you? I don't know. I hope it makes things easier. That's a very Mara answer. What would another answer sound like? I don't know anymore. The line crackled faintly. Somewhere near him, a door closed. I found a rental closer to the studio, he said. Nothing fancy. Does it have a workshop? A garage? Technically. You can improve the definition. That made him laugh again, and for a moment we were on one of our old calls, making a home sound temporary because temporary was survivable. I should go, he said. Okay. Mara? Yes? I'm sorry, I thought keeping it proved something. I looked around the little duplex. The old chair sat beside the eastern window. My flag hung on the wall above it with my service photograph beneath the folded blue field. What did you think it proved? I asked. That you left too much. That eventually you'd want some of it back. The honesty hurt without cutting. I'm sorry, I said. I know. After we hung up, I sat in the scarred chair and watched evening erase the light from the floor. The house sold. Dean's offer became a contract, then a closing date. Tessa helped him pack but refused to coordinate the move. He hired movers. Janelle made sure the studio's delivery van was not volunteered. For 2 weeks, I heard nothing. Then Tessa called while I was inspecting a materials shipment. We found something, she said. What? A box behind the record cabinet. Letters. Most of them are addressed to you. I closed my clipboard. Letters from Georgia, Kentucky, Kuwait. Notes Dean had written and never trusted to email. Pages I had sent home from places where sand entered everything, even sealed envelopes. Can you bring them to me? I asked. They're at the house. Dean wants you to come. Why? You should ask him. The closing was the next morning. I went after work. The cedar planters were gone from the porch. Through the front windows, I could see pale rectangles where furniture had protected the floors from sunlight. Dean opened the door before I knocked. Behind him, the house was almost empty. Come in, he said. The entryway echoed when I stepped inside. Dean had removed the bench, the coat hooks, and the narrow cabinet where we used to drop keys and unopened mail. 4 pale squares marked the wall where photographs had hung. Without furniture, the house looked less like a home than a set after the actors had been dismissed. You want coffee? He asked. Do you still have coffee? I have a machine, 2 mugs, and no spoons. That's enough infrastructure. He led me into the kitchen. The walnut dining table was gone. So were the stools, the copper pans, and the yellow flowers he had started buying after the retirement dinner. A cardboard box sat on the counter beside 2 travel mugs. Dean poured coffee into the mug that said, Vance Grain, built to last. He saw me reading it and turned the words toward himself. Tessa packed the normal cups, he said. She packed? She supervised my packing choices from a respectful distance. That sounds like her. She kept saying, Is this an owner decision? I smiled. The box was soft at the corners and stained along one side. Someone had written letters in my handwriting. I recognized it from our Kentucky house, though I could not remember packing the box. We found it behind the record cabinet, Dean said. It must have fallen when I moved things for the renovation. I opened the top. Envelopes stood in uneven rows, held together with rubber bands that had gone brittle. My old addresses appeared in Dean's handwriting. Fort Stewart, Fort Knox, a P.O. numbers, temporary lodging. One envelope had been returned and forwarded twice before reaching me. I lifted a bundle. You kept all of these? Most, I think. Why? Same reason you did. I loosened the rubber band. The first letter was from Georgia, written a year into our marriage. Dean had drawn a terrible floor plan for an apartment he wanted us to rent, labeling one corner, Mara's ridiculously organized boots. I laughed. What? He asked. You thought 6 pairs of boots was ridiculous. It was 6 pairs for the same foot. They had different purposes. They were all brown. I handed him the page. He looked at the drawing and smiled without showing his teeth. 27, he said. You were 29. I was young for 29. You're still young for whatever age you are. I'm 48. That one. He put the letter back. The next bundle came from Kuwait. Some were his, filled with descriptions of the cedar house when we first bought it. A leaking basement window, the neighbor's tree dropping branches into our yard, Dean's first attempt to build the dining table in the new studio. In one, he had enclosed a paint sample for the kitchen and written, "Too yellow?" beneath it. I had replied in a letter folded around the same square. "It looks like mustard surrendered." Dean laughed. "We still painted the kitchen that color. You said it was warm. It was aggressive. The letters did not reveal anything we had not known. No hidden confession, no secret version of our marriage waiting to make the ending simpler. They showed two people making ordinary plans under unusual strain, both trying to sound less lonely than they were. I found one I'd forgotten," Dean said. He reached into the box and removed an envelope without needing to search. The paper inside had been folded and unfolded enough that the creases were white. It was from him, written during my second deployment. I remembered receiving it. I remembered the plastic chair outside the communications trailer, the hot wind pushing dust across my boots, and reading Dean's words twice before tucking them into my pocket. He had written about the studio he wanted to build someday, not the garage version, a real place with brick walls and tall windows. He described the smell of cut wood, the long work tables, and my desk near the front, where I could see every order come in and every finished piece leave. At the time, the desk had sounded like belonging. "You planned my office before you had a building," I said. "I planned everything." "You did. I thought it was romantic." "It was." He looked at me. "Was?" Then. Dean folded the letter along its old creases. "I didn't ask you here because of the box," he said. "I assumed. I could have given it to Tessa. She would have read enough to develop opinions. She developed them from the outside of the envelopes." He put the letter on the counter. "I wanted to see you before I left the house." "Okay." He carried his coffee into the empty living room. I followed. The fireplace looked smaller without the flag above it. Nail holes remained in the wall. The abstract painting was wrapped in a moving blanket and propped beside the front door. Two folding chairs faced the windows. We sat. Dean rested his mug between his hands. "When I called your service a hobby, I knew it wasn't one. You told me that. I didn't understand why I said it. You were angry. That's not a reason. Anger picks from what's already loaded." He looked around the room. "I spent years resenting the Army because it got the first claim on you. Then I used everything it gave us. The loan, the savings, the insurance, your salary, the way you could walk into chaos and make it behave. The Army didn't give you the last one." "No, you did." A moving truck passed outside, its engine briefly filling the silence. Dean continued. "I told myself I had earned all of it because I followed you. Portland, Georgia, Kentucky. Every time I gave something up, I kept the receipt. I looked down at my hands. You did give things up." "I did. But I kept deciding you owed me without telling you the balance." The honesty in the empty room felt different from the apologies at the dining table. There was nothing left for the words to preserve. "I thought if I said your service was nothing," he said, "then I didn't owe it anything. You didn't owe the Army." He nodded. "You owed me the truth. I know. The truth was that you resented me. Sometimes. And you loved me. Yes. Both can be true." I finally learned that sentence. I looked toward the kitchen, where the box of letters waited. "I owe you truth, too," I said. "I treated your yes like it was permanent. You said you would follow me, and every time orders came, I acted like the difficult decision had already been made. I could have said no, yes. But I knew you probably wouldn't." Dean rubbed his thumb over the lid of his mug. "I made myself necessary," I continued. "At the studio, at home, everywhere. Then I hated you for needing me. You didn't hate me. Sometimes." He looked at me, surprised. "And I loved you," I said. "Both can be true." We sat with that. The afternoon light shifted across the bare floor. I could see every scratch the furniture had hidden. Near the fireplace was a dark mark from the first Christmas tree we bought for this house. One of us had watered it too much. We had blamed each other until the stand overflowed again while we were both watching. "Did you almost come back?" Dean asked. "Yes." "When?" "The weekend in the mountains. When you replaced the fan. When you hired Janelle. When you made terrible omelets and acted like mustard was a food group. That was a strong week. Every time you made me laugh." He swallowed. "Why didn't you?" "Because missing you wasn't the same as wanting our life back. We could have made a different life. Maybe. But you didn't want to." "No." He nodded slowly. There was pain in his face, but no argument. "I thought keeping the house would keep the possibility," he said. "I know. I couldn't afford the possibility. That sounds like a furniture quote you should put on a wall. It would sell. Use a tasteful font." He smiled. The humor did not rescue us. It simply reminded me why there had been something worth grieving. Dean told me about his rental. It was 10 minutes from the studio, above a former auto parts store that was becoming a bakery. The garage had one working outlet and a door that stuck in humid weather. He planned to build shelves after closing. "The upholsterer renting the back of the studio is loud," he said, "but he pays on time." "Janelle approves?" "Janelle negotiated the lease." "Of course she did. She also reduced my owner draw." "You say that like she entered your house at night. She scheduled the conversation. I asked about Vance Grain. The business was smaller than Dean had intended and healthier than it had been. He had stopped chasing projects that required expensive materials before deposits cleared. Luis was training another builder. The Ash Preston table had led to 2 more commissions. "I kept thinking growth meant proof," Dean said. "More space, more equipment, bigger projects. Proof of what? That following you hadn't made me less." I turned toward him. "I never thought you were less. I know that now." He looked at the empty fireplace. "You did fund this life," he said, "not by yourself, but enough that I should have known better than to call the source a hobby." I did not correct him or soften the statement. He had the house, the studio, the truck for a while, the furniture, the dinners, and every visible thing people had used to measure our marriage. One by one, he had discovered the cost of holding them without me, not because I had set a trap, because I had stopped paying in ways neither of us had counted. "The buyers come at 8 tomorrow," he said. "You're ready?" No. Neither were they, probably. "That helps less than you think." We stood. In the kitchen, Dean lifted the box and carried it to my car. It was heavier than its size suggested. Paper accumulated years quietly. At the trunk, he set it beside a bag of roofing samples I had forgotten to unload. "You always have work in your car," he said. "Occupational damage. You taking care of yourself?" "Better." "Celia?" "Mostly threats. Tessa likes her. They met once. Tessa likes anyone who tells you what to do. That explains Nina." He closed the trunk. I reached into my coat pocket and took out the Cedar House key. I had found it weeks earlier in the side pocket of my purse. Legally, it opened nothing that belonged to me. Dean looked at it in my palm. "I forgot I still had it," I said. He took the key. For a moment, we stood close enough to hug and uncertain enough not to. Then Dean opened his arms. I stepped into them. He smelled like coffee, sawdust, and the laundry detergent we had used for years. His hand rested between my shoulder blades, mine pressed against the back of his jacket. There was no promise in the embrace, no reset, no corrected version waiting to begin. Just gratitude and grief occupying the same space without trying to defeat each other. When we separated, his eyes were wet. "I did love you," he said. "I know. I'm sorry I made love sound like ownership." I nodded because I could not trust my voice. He went back into the house. I watched him close the door and lock it with the key I had returned. I drove home with the letters in the trunk. The duplex stopped feeling temporary after that. I renewed the lease, then replaced the blue couch with one that did not tilt toward the middle. I kept the scarred kitchen chair by the east window. My flag stayed on the wall, but I moved the service photograph into a row with ordinary pictures. Tessa and Nina laughing at the showcase before any of us knew how the night would end. Loretta holding her umbrella like a weapon, my father beside the toolbox he eventually gave me, Dean and me on a Kentucky porch, when we were both young enough to believe endurance solved everything. I did not remove him from the story to prove I had survived it. At Rebuild Richmond, I trained Aisha to cover my projects, then trained myself not to correct the way she did it. Celia rejected my first vacation itinerary because it included driving times, alternate routes, and a section labeled contingencies. "Where are you going?" she asked. "The coast." "To accomplish what?" "Nothing." "Then your plan is too ambitious." I booked a room near the water for 4 days. No meetings, no scheduled tour, no list of restaurants ranked by distance and parking availability. On my first morning there, I woke before sunrise out of habit. Gray light gathered over the ocean. My phone sat silent on the nightstand. No one needed a delivery moved. No roof required assessment. No husband waited for me to convert worry into a plan. I lay back down. For once, morning arrived without orders, and I let it wait.